Hey there. Usually we begin these episodes by directing you to our Patreon campaign, but I want to instead send you to a different show that we do. Head over to watchoutforfireballs.com or to Duckfeed.tv/watchoutforfireballs to check out the retro games and regular games game club podcast that we do. We've had a tremendous amount of kind of interesting and cool stuff this year, and we also have about 6 years of kind of content that we're really proud of talking about games. So if you haven't given that show a chance, we welcome you to go over there and find an episode about a game that you know about and to give us a shot. That is, again, watchoutforfireballs.com or duckfeed.tv/watchoutforfireballs. Thank you.
Some of our landings were desperate adventures. We are now prepared to meet the inevitable counterattacks with power and with confidence.
Hark! They brought thee here, did they not? Dost thou the gods serve, or merely that role affect? A lie. A wretched lie. How wouldst one such as thee do service to the gods? Thy scheme is known to me. I know what it is thou desirest. The dark soul. Why else wouldst one deign to visit this dung heap? Give rest to thy falsity. I would be an ally to thee.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Kole Ross.
My name is Richard Pillbeam.
And you're listening to Bonfireside Chat. It is the favorite. That's it.
This is the
favorite.
It's the last
one.
Gary, this is the last bit of original Dark Souls content we're going to cover.
Yeah,
it's
that's
important.
the last time I have to make up an adjective for favorite.
Well, I mean, we've got more episodes coming.
No, I know, but I guess that's true, and I do that for all.
For everything.
Games,
yeah,
so.
It's
Yeah.
And this week we are continuing our discussion of.
Can I real quick?
Yeah.
Can I put a pin in that and tell you what? The reason why that happened is because I was going to say a slave favorite and then felt like it was inappropriate.
Oh, do you want me to edit that out?
No, it's okay because I didn't say it. I just said it was going to say. So that's why that delivery was so weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want it, but I don't think that was funny or anything.
No.
I'm just letting you know what my first instinct was and then why I stopped myself. Just giving everybody a peek what was going on in my mind. I was trying to make up something on the spot.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
yeah.
It's not like slaves are inherently something you can't talk about. Like we're going to talk about slaves. Like in this game, there's a slave night. But that's what I was going to say. Then, second guess myself.
Yeah.
So always believe in yourself, kids.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And a lot of shots are taken in this portion of the Ring City DLC.
That is a brilliant segue.
Yeah, thank you. I've done this for a while. I'm allowed to be proud of that. No, it's but yeah, we're continuing our discussion of the Ringed City DLC, transitioning from the Dreg Heap to the Ringed City proper. And as you heard, we are joined once more by Richard Pillbeam. Thank you for sticking around.
Thank you for inviting me on. For like the benefit of people listening, like this is going to be a week after the previous one, but it's like 10 minutes later for us.
Yeah.
And
this enters you into the Four Timers Club.
Ooh,
wow!
So you're in the Three Timers Club. Now you're in the Four Timers Club.
Yes, I know. I'm really like honored that you asked me on like the last episode.
Oh yeah, no problem. I'm really happy you agreed to be on, and it's worked out. Like having finding your stuff and then kind of becoming internet buddies with you and stuff has been one of many kind of things, but it's been really great. Like it's been a nice thing about doing the show. So
thank you. Yeah, same.
Yeah. But Richard does the Bloodborne up close videos and several other Bloodborne and Dark Souls related lore kind of things. Dark Souls 3 lore related things on the Jerk Sans Frontiers. I always pronounce that wrong. YouTube channel.
Anyone.
Yeah.
Oh. You gotta do like a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and just call it JSF.
Yes.
I'm fine with that. That's what I've become called on the internet now.
it's
Sup, Jeff.
Yeah, is that what you put in on high score lists?
Yeah.
So last time, like I said, we went through the dreg heap. We saw a bunch of different strata of different kind of areas and times and periods kind of gathering, amalgamating at the end of the world in complete ruin. And we fought the demon prince, or, some monsters that turned into the demon prince. And we traveled through the hole where Kath, or, Kath is the right one, right?
Frowned. Whichever one you make friends with.
Yeah, whichever one you make friends with, yes. We go through that, and we're picked up by some gargoyles, our old familiar friends from Anorlando and, what's the place? The Undead Settlement. Yeah. And they drag us to the city proper, which is anything but, it's ruined, but it is not as ruined as what we have seen so far.
Yeah.
And we're gonna get right into it. The last episode we covered one boss. This time we're gonna cover 3, so we're gonna move at a little bit of a quicker pace. As we mentioned in the last one, these last couple episodes are kind of our last chance for kind of summations on Dark Souls 3. We have your responses to the Ring City and stuff, but this being the last piece of content on the game, seems appropriate.
Yeah.
This first area is the outer wall, which kind of continuing a theme is incredibly beautiful.
Oh yeah.
We're seeing this kind of lots of flowers, kind of growing up around these graves we can see down below, and then this kind of new architecture, these kind of domed spires. It is kind of like a more lush and pretty. It kind of recalls like several different areas.
Yeah, it looks a little like Ulasil.
Yeah.
If you imagine Ulasil prior to everything going to shit, it looks kind of like that.
Yeah. I love, again, the color palette of this, at least from a distance, is this kind of burnt orange, kind of being taken over by this fresh green growth. You just haven't seen that so far. Yeah. And you also see like a big kind of city off in the distance that you don't really go to. It's the upper part. We're going to almost universally be moving down into the street level as we kind of go about this. But we have an NPC who we meet right away. Hey, remember the pygmies?
No.
Kinda. I felt like that was over a bit. I suppose not.
You felt like that was what?
Over. Like we had kind of dealt with those guys.
Yeah. No.
They were so far in the past to be. But
right. Not. Yeah. Well, I mean, so you forgot about them because they're furtive. No. Here you find somebody who kind of asks you a question. He asks you who you serve. This is a corrupted pygmy lord. And if you say, yes, I serve the Lord, he doesn't, or I serve God, he doesn't believe you. He gets angry. Like, what God would somebody as pitiful as you serve? Stuff like that. And he knows that you're here to seek the Dark Soul, and he gives your quest to go to Filianor's church.
I kind of feel like I would have preferred this guy switched with the Stoneham hag. Because I feel like meeting this guy at the start and him saying, like, hey, all this horrible shit is going down in the Ring City. You need to seek Filianor's church at the very beginning of this would have given it a lot more, like, structure and impetus.
Yeah.
Rather than what we get, which is, like, someone saying, oh, I guess you're here for the Dark Soul. Why not keep going?
Yeah.
But, like, now we actually have an objective, which is seek Filianor's church, which we didn't really have before. It was just falling.
Yeah. I would have liked to have started looking for Filianor before I knew she was Gwen's youngest daughter that we never heard about.
Yeah.
We shall we'll get to that.
We shall talk.
So this guy also talks to you, kind of talks about the different people who have sent or have started into the Ring City. Is that correct?
No,
or is there I'm thinking of the later guy.
Yeah, you're thinking of somebody later. This guy, he's not having any of it. He's corrupted, so he doesn't. He's working counter to the design of this place. I'll cut in the dialogue here because I really enjoy it. He is talking about Filianor here.
Our slumber is a deceit, a lid covering an overgrown privy, a prop to keep thee from the dark soul of thine desire. If thou art yet human, the urge will soon begin to swell, to curse the gods and bring ruin upon this accursed heap of dung.
Sure. Like that is evocative and cool. We're going to move forward here, and even though we have not started over our count, because as we get down to this little graveyard down in the bottom, and this is a semi kind of funny fuck you moment. Like Dark Souls likes to do these fuck. Yeah, I laughed. Like it's still frustrating. I'm patience for these fuck you moments is not limitless, you know. But to have 1,000 ghost archers just pop up and one shot me, like as soon as I get down here, right after a boss, I did laugh. It is mechanic number 5 to keep running though. So, because we're entering in something that is very similar to the angel thing. This is running from cover to cover from projectiles. Like we just did that. Like it is weird how one note this early section of this DLC is.
Yeah.
You know, it's a bit different. Like it doesn't articulate exactly the same way, but it's a design space. It's like the go kill the summoner, or go kill the the locus of this thing that is harrying you. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's just a lot of that concentrated in one space.
Yeah.
But it's worth it because we get the backstory of the Ruin Sentinels, which I know everyone has been losing sleep over since 2014.
Yep. You remember that boss?
Finally.
That boss that was so unnotable that it just became regular enemies. They were going after the Dark Soul too. So Vendrick, even though we basically saw every single possible angle of his designs in fighting the curse, we never heard about this. I mean, I'm giving them shit because they obviously didn't think about, they didn't have this in mind. Planned. You know, like they didn't plan it.
They like the way the armor looked.
Yes, and so they took it. And it doesn't hurt anything, but it also again is one of these kind of shallow grabs at Dark Souls 2, a game that I have a lot of affection for.
Yeah. Like this was to me like the third that wouldn't happen moment, because they were shown off in the trailers and everyone was saying, the Ruin Sentinels are back, and I'm like, it's not the Ruin Sentinels, because like that very distinctive helmet, like that is a real helmet. It's used for jousting, and like, hey, they just like that helmet design. They've just brought some good. No, it's actually the Ruin Sentinels. Okay, never mind.
No, we'll find.
It's not necessarily like the one. They're not necessarily tied to Vendrick is the thing, because it talks about like, these knights were sent here and then their design inspired golems of a later age. So if you accept that the Ruin Sentinels that we fight in the Bastille are golems, then it's like this is something that I guess predated Vendrick, and he just never learned about that, I guess. I'm just desperately trying to make sense of this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Vendrick has them in the basement of his castle as well, and they rise open. You know, they're in the golem room with that. It's alluded to be an old king, and I am not charitable enough to Dark Souls 3 lore to have them mention a king. So king, not a lord, because a lord would have been Gwyn or one of the other lords. No, an old king would be Vendrick, because fuck you, there is only one notable king.
Yeah. I mean, it could be nobody, or it could be like neither is satisfying, is the point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, neither adds a whole lot to this thing. It is literally they liked the armor, and that's why they made this choice.
Yeah.
It does not enrich my understanding of Dark Souls 2. It does not enrich my understanding of the Ring City.
Nope.
It's just there.
It is good armor. You get it.
It's cool looking. Like I've always liked the Ruin Sentinels armor. I even don't mind the Ruin Sentinels. They're hated as I don't even mind them in Dark Souls 2. I'm on the record as not minding those guys. And even this part I don't hate if it hadn't come on the heels of all these other run as fast as you can parts.
Yeah.
Like this is kind of interesting. So the way this articulates, and that's a little bit different, is they're on this rhythm. This adjudicator giant summons them, and they shoot at you from all angles. They kind of come from everywhere, and you're finding these little pockets in these gravestones where you're covered from all angles.
Yeah.
They shoot enough volleys to where you can't really, like, I didn't have enough stability to block through them, and I have a fully upgraded reasonable shield. So, you had to find these kind of places. The way it articulates is very trial and error. Because I definitely found myself in a couple places where I thought I was safe, and then would get kind of hit in the back because, I wasn't in the right spot.
Yeah.
Until I eventually figured it out. And then the part of it that makes it so, like, one, I don't like that it comes right after the angels. Two, when you finally you kind of make your way to the right, you fall down this little drop, as the way I did it. You can actually make your way up the graves as well.
Yeah.
Climb up this thing. They give you a couple of knights to fight as well, which feels a little bit unnecessary, but you go up there. Then the adjudicator giant also summons a melee character and does melee attacks. And when you kill him, he respawns.
Yep.
I don't know why the adjudicator giant respawns. That's so misguided
to me. Is like, and there's multiple adjudicators and they all respawn, and it is like I just ran past this guy, but there's one later on who I actually put time into killing from range.
Yeah.
And then I found out later on he just comes back again, and I'm like, what? Why are you doing this?
Yeah, I just don't get that.
Yeah.
Like that seems like a really bad choice to me, because this is a set piece. You know, it's not like a fight. Mm-hmm. This is not a cool battle. This is like a puzzle.
Yeah.
You know, get past the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah. I'm only going to get, I just need to get to that next bonfire. But I wanted to, if I did die between here and there, because like, the game, this area is hard. Having to do it again is frustrating. And if I want to go back and explore, I have to like meticulously clear it out.
Yeah.
Again.
And there are items out there. Nothing really that great, but it's going to tempt you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you kill the adjudicator giant, you can go like underneath the platform he's in. Mm-hmm. And there's just like a hidden blessing there, and I'm like, really?
I was really expecting that to be something cooler too. It looks like an important tomb. Yeah, it is a hidden blessing. It's the double hidden blessing.
So just to to pile maybe a teaspoon of sugar on this bile, this is technically very impressive. I love the way that this looks. When you have these, what feels like hundreds, and it's probably more like 30 translucent orange knights appear all at once and aim at a single place and fire kind of in lockstep. That is something new. I haven't seen that. It is something that feels like it is taking advantage of the power of whatever system this is made for, right? Like that like that is cool and good. All of this other stuff aside, it is pretty and it's impressive.
It definitely looks cool. Yeah. This whole thing is a cool looking set piece. As is, just the way it articulates is not my fave.
Yeah.
And then the fact that these things come back when you're also dealing with 1,000 other things at the same time, like the next one of these you run into bothers me more.
Yeah.
Because this one is laid out like a puzzle with these little safety spots on the way, and you have to kind of pathfind. The second one is in a huge open area, and like that makes it easier to dodge a little bit, but it's on top of other gameplay conceits.
Yeah.
Like you could theoretically be fighting a boss from Dark Souls 3 at the same time you're dealing with this in that next area where these show up. So it's like all of that kind of adds up. That's not explicitly a mechanic that makes you not want to fight, but it certainly makes me not want to fight. And it ended up being that like I just ended up not experiencing a lot of the DLC. Mm-hmm. I didn't stop and like check it. I explored and everything, but I didn't stop and take it in. My usual kind of heuristic of like clear this out and explore it meticulously. Which I just didn't do, because it was too discouraging. It was too frustrating to do. And then to have them respawn, it's like, you make one little fuck up between bonfires, or you don't, you just make it to the next bonfire and heal. And then if you want to go back and check some stuff out,
that's what happened to me, because like there's one later on who's up on like an elevated platform and you can snipe him from the back. And I'm like, oh, okay, sniper spot. I'll kill this guy, so when I go back up, he's not going to be there. And of course, I rested at a bonfire. And then thinking he wouldn't respawn because that would be bad game design. And then I pop out the top and he's still there.
Yeah. That seems... I don't get it.
The other thing, like, you're talking about like set pieces and vistas and things, is that we can see in the distance this tower that's like... this bonfire is called Mausoleum Overlook. Like, I had no idea what this tower was, and I was posting on Twitter, like, what is this? And a guy called Candidate, who does a Dark Souls 3 channel, he said, well, the bonfire is called Mausoleum Overlook, so it's looking at that, presumably the mausoleum is that tower. But, like, we never go there. And, like, Vati has a video where he uses a mod to clip inside it, and it's empty. And you see it at the very, very end. Like, there was a theory that's where we fight the final boss, but when you fight the final boss, that tower is actually still there intact. So I'm just like, I have no clue. Like, what? Because it's one of those things that's like played up in the marketing. Like it's on like the promotional material. That tower is the focus, and there's nothing in it, and it does nothing.
Yeah, it's weird. You eventually, you get past this guy, and this is when we run into that. You're heading through the outer walls here of this kind of area, and we run into these Lothric thief characters. Who kind of shove you off. Again, it's traps on traps on traps. Like, but again, like I've gone through the cathedral, so I know. I know not to get pushed off this shit. And you run into the NPC that I was thinking of earlier.
Yes,
who kind of lays out and tells you who's come before you.
Yeah,
I love this
area.
It's pretty good. I like this. So this is Whiteface Priest. It's kind of a locust man. who is peeking furtively out from around a corner. I didn't intentionally use furtively, but it works. And he starts telling you, like, hey, I'll just cut this in.
Many of us are by the fire, forsaken. I speak of thine kind and mine. Behold this city. We are kindred, but like two eyes which gaze upon the other. One was a wayfaring knight on an endless, forbidden search. Only the abyss granted closure, if not reunion with his beloved. Fear not the dark, my friend, and let the feast begin.
Can I talk about how much I love, like, this NPC to me kind of redeems the whole DLC for me because of one line reading?
Sure.
Because there is a bit where you meet him and he talks about various characters who you've met throughout the game. And he starts talking about someone who's, like, kind of implied to be Irina of Kareem. And like, the way she talks about there's dark creatures nibbling at my flesh. And he talks about her and he says,
she lived in fear of the dark, of the things that gnawed at her flesh. And yet, the abyss hath yet to produce any such creature.
And he's so, like, pedantic and irritated. Like, he's just, like, on Twitter all day, like, furious at all this, like, bullshit people are saying about the abyss that's not true. He's got to correct them. He's like, hashtag fake news, fuck this. And he's like, just that one reading, it's like one of the things the Souls games are great at is investing little bits of humanity in monsters, and just the fact that there's this, like, fucking horrible locust monster and he's just annoyed. It's just beautiful.
It would be, if you were a more prominent character, it'd be a great fake Twitter account. Where it's just him complaining about stuff in that kind of voice.
I want him in other areas of the game, just, like, complaining about everything.
Oh my gosh, why does this elevator go up?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the guy doing the voiceover didn't know he was voicing a locust, so he's just a guy.
But I mean, again, though, to your point, though, like, you know, them giving the monsters kind of the humanity, that's a strong directorial choice if they didn't tell him he was a locust.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't say, like, hey, do a locust voice or anything. They're like, hey, you're a priest.
Yeah,
just
well,
do a voice
he might
like
have
that.
known, and he just did it this way. I don't know.
Yeah,
but like,
because he does say, like, you know, they do talk about eating a lot, like, fear not the dark and let the feast begin.
Yeah, it's like
there's a hunger motif with these guys.
Yeah, the like, again, the Corvians and Ariandel, like, they just talk like normal people. They're not doing like screechy bird voices. Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't know how intentional it is, but it works really well. That this is just normal.
Yeah, I love it. So he does talk about a couple different people, including he mentions this wayfaring knight that is we're going to run into, which is another Dark Souls 2 callback, which could be Alva, who we've seen before, and this weird kind of little side story that was told in item descriptions in Dark Souls 2 gets articulated fully. But he mentions like several different people. Just kind of like laying out the people who have come before, because this is again a convergence.
Well, he's described as, like, the locusts are described as being preachers who, like, they give these sermons to lure people into the dark.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that's what he's doing. He's saying, like, all these people have come, and, like, the ones who feared the dark were wrong to fear it, and the ones who embraced it were right. So you have to follow this example and embrace the dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it explicitly says, like, they're supposed to do that except they get too hungry and stop. Mm-hmm. Which is, again, a real relatable human thing. That pops up here, where it's like, oh, you know, there's lots of things I should do, but I just, you know, instead have sandwiches. Like, most of the sandwiches I've had, I could be doing something more productive with my life. So I get it.
Yeah.
And like the hostile ones that you kill, they, like, pretty frequently drop dung. So it's like they're just eating, like, the rot of the ringed city rather than giving. Yeah.
No. So this is a new manifestation of corruption. I don't know. This is the first time we've seen people turn into bugs as a result of proximity to or alignment with the dark. But again, we're just kind of along for the ride at this point.
Yeah.
We run into Lap again after we talk to this guy up near this bonfire. He tells you again what he wants to do, and he says, like, there's nothing for it. Let's have a drink, and gives you a Siegbräu, which is the beer in this area. Which it's not just like Siegmeyer's special brew. You can go and buy Siegbräu at like places, or just pick it up somehow. Or he stole it from Siegmeyer when he trapped him in that well, and has been keeping this for millennia.
Yep, it's bottle aged.
Yep.
That's how I took it, because he says like, this is my last like brew and I'm going to share it with you.
Yes. Again, so selfless.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to see him again later, obviously, and we've got these Lothric knights, or these Lothric thieves here as well. As we descend into kind of the next area, these gardens and the stairs. Again, this is very pretty. We're down here with these flowers that look like the field at the end of Bloodborne.
Yep.
You know, we've got climbing ivy and things like that. And this garden is also ringed by these statues of kind of gaunt people carrying these large rings in a similar design to the tombstones of the on the Road of Sacrifices.
And the the ring design, it's the ring that's forms the top of the Sword of Avowal that we get from the Londor quest. It's that without the sword attached.
I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and that's a recurring design throughout. Like Vardy talked about this before it came out. But like, if you look at the city, like all the roofs and buildings have that same ring design all over them. So presumably, like I think like the ringed city, it's more like it's the city of the ring, and that's the ring that we're supposed to be. Like, it's the city of that ring. Like, that's what the city is built around. Yeah. Rather than necessarily ring.
Yeah, it's not ring shaped, which is what I initially thought of.
Yeah.
It's kind of ring shaped, but parts fallen off, because like that degree, when you look to that mausoleum tower, it's like just nothing. Like, there's just clouds.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting though about that being the ring that's on that sword, because we all thought we were going to go to Londor.
Because that would make sense.
Because that would make sense. It's not Londor, but that is a weird connection to Londor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a bunch of other Londor connections, like, as we go along. Like, it's one of those things like there's thematic resonance, but it doesn't really tell us anything new.
Yeah. It's a strange choice, because on the surface, it's pretty neat. Like, it's a really cool image. Those statues are a good image.
Yeah.
And it's a nice, like, thematic, like, oh, like, people are literally carrying this cycle. Like, it is weighing on them.
Yeah.
This is
the physical embodiment of the dark sign as like this like weight you have to carry with you. That's like keeping you. Yeah.
That's super cool. It's just, why is it the one from the sword, from this wedding, from this thing that we didn't really get to go experience or go visit? That's an odd choice.
Well, because they're connected though, because like the whole Londor thing is to do with like the primordial serpents and like the dark, and this is where like the pygmies are sealed in their serpent statues here. So like there are connections here that can be made, but we're not really told anything explicitly. And
I mean, I guess that's what I mean. Like it's because there are obviously the dark and pygmies. City of the pygmies is always going to be connected to the dark, and Londor is connected to Kath, who's also connected to the dark. Yeah. It's just connections without us actually going there. And I wonder, how hard it would have been to make that more explicit, or to make this Londor, or make us go through Londor on the way here.
Yeah.
If you have this kind of convergence, like, yeah.
Well, I mean, Londor kind of is implied to have to be newer than the Ring City. Like the Ring City is as old as anything. Yeah.
I mean, at least maybe the Dark Souls 3 layer of the strata, above. That would have been a cool way to do it, because even though it wouldn't have been Dark Souls 3, it would have been concurrent chronologically.
Mm-hmm.
And so and then you could have had a chronological connection between that, because if the descendants of these pygmies eventually ended up in Londor, or people who worship the same god, it would make sense for them to have the same kind of iconography. Yeah. Which you can kind of see here. It would have just maybe drawn that line a little bit thicker, a little bit bolder, I guess.
I am fine with Londor being explained/not explained to the degree it already was in the base game.
Mm-hmm.
But then this adds a bunch of little extra like resonances with Londor that sort of now it's pushed over into like, well, you've sort of developed this to the point where like I'm going to be annoyed that you haven't developed it further rather than just leaving it like it was.
It's 70%.
Yeah, it's at the profane profane flame level.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite as intense as the profane flame, but
no, I don't think anything is that.
I mean that's probably the number one thing on your bingo board.
Yeah.
Which I think I referenced a bunch on Twitter, but Richard made when he first streamed this, he made a bingo board of things from Dark Souls 3 that they could wrap up in the DLC. And it's a pretty good read.
I decided at the last minute not to use it, And I'm glad I did, because nothing's wrapped up at all. So the whole comic premise of the bingo card wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, nobody gets a bingo. So
yeah.
So we run into our first ringed knight down here. These things are pretty cool. These are knights. They kind of look a little bit like Darkwraith, so they have similar armor.
Yes.
On them. And the most striking feature, though, is a gigantic dark sign kind of burned into their chest.
Yeah, it's like it's a gaping hole with a fiery rim. It's a very striking design, and these guys are very fun to fight.
Yeah.
They've got 3 varieties. They've got like a greatsword, dual greatsword, and pikes, right? And the ones that have shields, their shields are actually modeled after dragons' heads, and they will use those as like a little flamethrowers.
Yeah, and you can get that as well.
Yeah.
And they're neat in the way that they contrast with the Herald Knights, because like what we're told about these ring knights is that because they're sealed with the fire of the dark sign, that stops them like succumbing.
Yeah.
So like you have the Herald Knights who weren't like they couldn't contain their humanity, and they bloated into these giant like vine monsters.
Yeah.
And then you contrast that with the ring knights who, because they have that seal on them, it prevents them from becoming that.
Yeah.
And they're like reasonably normal looking, like they look like non-corrupted dark wraiths. Like their armor isn't falling apart, and they don't have weird branches growing off them.
Yeah, and they are this way because, you know, from back towards the beginning of time when they made gear out of abyssal material, it was seen to be corrupting. So like they're kind of like fused to it, or like you said, sealed with this mark that kind of puts them forever in the service.
Yeah, and it ties back into the notion of the dark sign itself as like this is the gods sealing away like the latent power of humanity with the sign.
No,
to stop them becoming Manus, kind of.
To make a really obscure but very apt comparison, with the Herald Knights and these guys, it's like the Marvel Comics character Chamber, who is a X-Men guy who's like the regular version. His face kind of exploded, and he doesn't have a lower jaw. He just has this energy that comes out of his chest.
Oh.
And that's like the Herald Knights, but in the Age of Apocalypse crossover pushes up glasses. It just came out of his chest, and he just has a ring in his chest where the energy can come out of.
Oh.
So it's this controlled version of it. Chamber, Marvel 616 Chamber is as to Herald Knights, as Age of Apocalypse Chamber is as to Ring Knights.
Yeah. You made
a future cast on Duckfeed.tv.
You made a handful of people very happy.
Yeah, I'm very. That's what I'm going for is depth, not breadth. So.
Oh yeah, but these guys are good. Like they're fun, challenging fights. Like their weapons get supercharged. You can pick up the Ring Knight paired greatswords, which are a tremendous amount of fun to fight with.
Yeah.
I believe it. I mean, I was a Dex cuck during this, but if I had the proper Dark Souls 3 build, I would have really enjoyed using those.
Yeah. I only had to juice like one stat. They've got like a follow-on stat to strength that you need to run. But yeah, like I picked these things up, and they were a good deal of fun, and they were also effective. Yeah.
This is also where we get our first hint that we're definitely going to run into Alva, because on this bridge we run into the Black Witch set.
Yes.
Which tells us about the story of Zuli, who we mentioned, who seduced Alva and ended up traveling with him. It is said that Zuli the witch, who was never loved nor loved another, experienced all manner of misfortune, and yet in the end found purpose in life, which is nice. We're going to be invaded by Alva. Once we get over to the kind of this corner area.
They found purpose in life, making a run on a city, and then being forced into eternal service as pale shadows of their former selves.
Yes.
Yeah. So
and
it's
like
raises
that. There was that whole thing about like is Carla, is she Zuli? Is she like another incarnation? And like this kind of like says no, she's not. Like he did actually find Zuli, the same Zuli from Dark Souls 2. Yeah.
This circular bell tower comes up with a new enemy, which is the I think 6th mechanic designed to keep you moving, which are these clerics, who I actually like fighting these things. They're similar to clerics. They have the stone on their back, similar to the Launder pilgrims, except they're mobile. They look like turtles.
Yep.
They're little tiny Ninja Turtle enemies.
And they're very quick.
They're super quick little scuttly turtle boys. And the way their attack works is they summon this energy field under you, and you have a second to move.
Right.
To continue on, or it will hurt you. I think fight again, like a lot of Dark Souls 3 Ring City enemies, I think these guys are fun to fight in kind of small numbers. When you get to a bunch of them, they get frustrating because they can heal.
Yeah.
And then when they start doing mix-ups, like these things with the Ring Knight down at the bottom is a bit much for me.
The healing thing like really irritated me when I was trying to fight them, because I would get them down to like a sliver and then they just retreat into their shell and they fully heal themselves.
Yeah. Like a turtle does.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got this turtle I've been trying to kill for like 30 years.
Trying to get his treasure.
Yeah, trying to suck out that treasure. And every time I hurt him, he retracts into his little house. I just need to run him over with a car and be done with it.
Oh, you found a hospital turtle. Yeah, the shell's a hospital. It's not a house. Yeah. You're fucked.
Yeah, this doctor makes house calls.
The thing that like irritates me about these guys, and I can understand maybe how somebody would like this. They start kind of peppering them around in hidden and obscure places. So you will just be progressing along, and then all of a sudden the ring shows up beneath you and you start getting hurt. If you want to get rid of them, you have to seek them out. And oftentimes they are inaccessible, or sometimes they're inaccessible. Or you have to, go to great lengths to kind of root them out. So, again, they've taken them from being enemies and turned them into environmental hazards.
Because they don't need line of sight.
Right.
So just think about, like, even people who like this DLC, like, think about how weird it is that they've used this design space 3 times now. Like, the hunt down the thing that is hurting you from a distance. The mechanic that, like, in previous games would be one area would be kind of based around this. And here in the space of just a couple hours, we've dealt with 3 enemies that have a variation of that. It's very strange.
2 of
like
which
it's a real weird choice.
and 1 of which can become invincible and heal itself.
Right.
Yeah. It is a super, super weird choice. And it's like, individually, I like these guys. It's just, I think this next area that we're going to get to is one of the worst designed areas in the series. I think this is some of the worst encounter design is the stairwell at the bottom of this thing. So like I ran down this spiral shape thing. It should be noted too, this is very linear actually. Once we get to this point. So it's like, you just kind of funnel forward. So running, doesn't actually, make sense. You're not going to run into a lot of dead ends. You get to the stairwell that I think is terrible.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is just crawling with enemies. So there are a couple of these priest guys that will be hanging around. There aren't very many, but there are enough. There are the mercmen that shoot spells at you. There's something that does projectiles. I can't remember if it's those guys or if it's another guy.
It's little like hollow clerics shooting lightning bolts.
Yeah. So there are lightning clerics, and there are a lot of them. And then there are, as you go down, it triggers a bunch of these herald knights walking up the stairs, who kind of chain pull.
But like the really bad thing about this is at the top of that staircase is an important NPC through a doorway who you talk to once. But because of the encounter design, unless you think to clear out the whole area before you talk to her, which no one is going to do unless they know beforehand that there's fucking like 7 Herald Knights here. The Herald Knights will show up when you are like halfway through the first sentence. You have no option but to cancel out and fight them or die. And then, so you have no idea what she's saying. And like there are prompts where she's asking you questions.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like who do you use? And I'm like, I don't fuck shit. And I'm just like rolling out of the way.
That is 100% why she's behind a door.
Yeah.
Like that feels like such a weird little band-aid to be like, oh, we one of those 2 things doesn't make sense. Having this because usually when there's an NPC, any NPC, they're in pretty unpopulated areas because they know you're going to want to talk to them. This is an extremely rare thing, and it's like it speaks well to the rest of the series, even in Dark Souls 3 base game, that this doesn't happen very often. Usually there's kind of a separation of space.
Eventually, after you do a bunch of stuff in the DLC, that door will open, and you can go in that room, and the Herald Knights are leashed, so they won't go in it. So if that door wasn't there, you could just run in there and snipe the Herald Knights without any threat.
Yeah, which they clearly didn't want to do. They want you to run by them, and not fight them because it sucks.
One of them is placed well, which is the one directly beneath you because it encourages you to notice he's there and do a plunging attack on him. But then, like as you go down, they literally they start spawning in. They're not even there initially. They crawl out of the swamp.
Yeah,
and it's just a nightmare.
I was very surprised. Like I knew there would be a couple of I saw a couple of them, and I was like, oh man, that sucks. That's a lot of these fuckers. And then when more of them showed up. like from around the corner, like that is when I just, pulled out my hair and ultimately gave up. Like this whole area became this weird mad dash because I went and fought the Seeker of the Spurned, like went and fought Alva, went and talked to Shira, and just did it doing these like large concentric circles around the door, clicking talk and trying to get through as much dialogue as I could before I had to dodge out of the way, which is not a good way to like read about this character that they're trying to, that has some, I guess, some sense of pathos. I don't really like Shira that much, but like there's a little bit, I guess, to Shira, like that's kind of interesting. And I didn't get a chance to actually talk to her because of this shit. So I don't know. I hate the stairwell so much. It goes on. It's long too. It's not just like a small stairwell. There's several different landings and little outcroppings from it.
Yeah. And again, like the landings and the outcroppings would have worked as a way to do plunging attacks on Herald Knights if there hadn't been that many Herald Knights. And also the clerics that are doing the non-line of sight automatic damage, and also the clerics that are shooting lightning at you.
The line of sight automatic
damage. And also the which we haven't mentioned yet, the there are other variations on that cleric that do passive curse damage if they're just anywhere near you.
Yes.
And they can stick to ceilings. Mm-hmm. So you'll just start getting cursed, not understand where it is, and realize it's above you.
And curse, if you recall, just kills you.
Yeah.
Like curse is a real big deal in this. Any one of these things on their own would be okay, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't know if 5 or 6, 7 Herald Knights is ever going to be okay.
It'd be much.
But other than that, like, the idea of these curse things like that are around and maybe sometimes they hurt you, like, I have to hunt them down. That's fine. Like I like that. Like, look around for the thing that's cursing me. I like the curse pots in Dark Souls 2. Like, I can dig that. Yeah. But all of it together, I think, is way too much.
Yeah. You can't go looking for the things because the Herald Knights are chasing you.
Yeah.
And you can't fight the Herald Knights properly because there's too many of them and things are cursing you. And it's just this like horrible like collision of shit.
I've been quiet, but you guys are summing up my thoughts. This is very, very poorly considered.
It's frustrating because like I want to stop and explore because that is one of the big primary drivers of me playing Dark Souls is like I want to check out all these nooks and crannies. I feel like I've said it every season, but like one of my favorite things about Dark Souls, get to the bottom of some stairs. There's going to be something cool under the stairs if you think to look. Like it's such a small thing, but I really love it. And this flies in the face of that to me.
And it just weirdly like the idea that they're selling this as a city, but the actual city component is kind of tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of it is a swamp and caves. And like if you look at the cities in the Soul series that are like Undead Burg, you get a sense of like what that place was like before it went bad. And like Boletaria is a really good example where like you can tell exactly like this is a real castle. And like Yharnam as well, this is a real city. You look at the Ring City, it's like, I don't know how did this work? Like, it's basically just a really long staircase and some bridges.
Well, maybe the habitable...
Did people live here?
The habitable parts are all sunken. What we're seeing is, like, weird public works and fortifications.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it still interrupts, like, what you're talking about, like, the sense of place. Like,
I'm not being an apologist. I'm just giving the I'm giving the explanation that a bonfire name gives.
Yeah, and again, you can explain it that way. That doesn't make it like a good choice. Like I would much rather have seen a city that feels like a city. Like we know people live here. There are kings of this place. It doesn't feel anything like that, and that's
or even just like a weird abstract environment that was cool on its own.
Yeah,
like I really like Broom Tower in Dark Souls 2. That makes absolutely zero sense. I have no idea how they went to work in the morning, but like. It's like this almost Zelda-like level of abstraction with all these like lifts and pulleys and things that's cool to navigate, even though it doesn't make practical sense as a place. And this is like, it's not cool to navigate, and it also doesn't make practical sense.
Yeah. Yep. Let's talk about Shira for a second, even though we're going to get more of her.
Yes.
A little bit later, too.
Yeah. So Shira is somebody who is kind of an attendant to Filianor. Right. She's at the top of the house and she asks you the name of God. And the answer that you can give is Gwyn. It is very weird to see Gwyn brought up at all, just because he hasn't factored in since game 1 and was never really, his name is not invoked in Dark Souls 3, the main body of it anyway. And she reiterates, hey, don't bother the princess. Again, contradicting the pygmy that you talked to on the way in. and says, basically gives you a quest for what to do, because this city is also under the protection of a dragon named Dark Eater Medir, which is, set to fight against the dark, but like all things that fight against the dark, has been corrupted by it and now needs to be put out of its misery.
Mm-hmm. Do we think this is the Abyss Dragon that they talk about in Ashes of Ariandel?
I think that would make sense, but I don't. There's nothing. Yeah, why would he? I mean, yes, but
because it's a weird thing that they would flag up in Ashes of Ariandel, which like this is basically Ashes of Ariandel Part 2 of the story, because we're following Gale.
Yeah.
So it's weird to me that they flag up like, hey, the Millwood Knights fought this Abyss Dragon, and then it never goes anywhere, and then we meet a dragon in the Abyss here. So I'm like, are they implying the Millwood Knights fought Medir?
And why are there no Millwood Knights here? Because everything else that fought and lost has been raised to keep everybody else out.
All it would have taken for that to be a little bit more satisfying would have been for the Millwood Knights to be yet another group that like went to the Ring City in order to try to get the Dark Soul, and or have a Millwood Knight like corpse or something in Medir's.
Yeah, anything. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like we end up in this situation now where we have two Abyss Dragons, one of which unpictured. Three Londor sisters, one of which unpictured. Like all these things where like there's sets of numbers. Like you could have chosen any number of sisters for Londor from the start. Like you could have chosen two, right?
In defense, we do actually see the third Londor sister.
Where do we see the third Londor sister?
She's only in the ending when you get Lord of Hollows.
You're right.
Ending.
You're right.
Yeah, there's two women in the black set bowing. We just never meet her in the game. Yeah.
So, but that's a non-additive, like you could have also just shown one person there. Like you could have had that two Londor sisters have no third one in the thing. And like, why choose three if it's not going to be meaningful?
We were convinced that she was going to be here because there's the ring from the Sword of Avowal, and it's like, oh, you've had one Londor sister in the base game and one in the first DLC, so it would make sense for the third one to be in the third one, and she's just never mentioned.
Yeah. And this is real similar where like, if you like, there's no reason for this not to be the Abyss Dragon that the Millwood Knights fought. Like there's no reason like you're making these choices from like it's not like you're not beholden to any governing body. Like you don't need to introduce
it. Medir is described as like having been in the Ring City and then left and come back again. So it's possible that he left, became the Abyss Dragon, and then came back. Like he fought the Millwood Knights, and then when they got sucked
in
the
pain, just came back again. Everyone who fights the Abyss gets a week of vacation off of fighting the Abyss to go be in another story.
It's just like when Artorias isn't on screen, the other character should be asking, "Where's Artorias?"
Yeah.
And that's going to get even more ridiculous when we get to the final boss.
Yeah,
I'm so tired.
So I mean, what won't we like? And then we get down to this. So we fight Alva. Alva invades. Here, which I think is a pretty tough summon actually.
Yeah.
And he parries like a motherfucker. Like he can parry in the middle of combos, which drives me nuts. Yep. Why do you have poise to parry in the middle of me like chaining you? Like that's not fair.
Yeah.
But we get onto the swamp, which is kind of a non-entity. Here.
Yeah.
This is where you run through it. It's a lot of space. This is where that second giant, adjudicator giant is that I was talking about that like is in the big open space, and I wish he was not here.
Yeah.
But at least there's a little bit of space to move around.
Yeah. And also this is not a Dark Souls swamp in the sense that it does not slow you down. It doesn't confer any kind of status effect. This isn't 5.2 again. People were complaining like, oh my gosh, so many swamps. At least it's not mechanically a swamp.
Yeah, it's not poisonous, which I was dreading.
No. Yeah, and this is full of small locusts, kind of tiny versions of the first creature that we saw, and also large ones who have kind of gone mad and are attacking you with these kind of cool-looking, like crystal or spectral branches.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And there's a white birch tree that factors into a very, very well-designed puzzle later on.
Oh boy, does it!
Damn it! Oh my god!
I don't actually like. I think that puzzle is kind of clever in a way that, but it also is not like a Dark Souls puzzle. Right? I mean, does that make sense? Like, it doesn't feel like it belongs in Dark Souls to me.
It makes sense in retrospect, but the problem is that it only in retrospect, because like given the mechanics of the game, like, you would not expect that to be the solution. And I was stuck here for a very long time because, I mean, we'll get to it later on, but like I had assumed a solution that I think made a lot more sense than the one that we got. But anyway.
Yeah. So there's a ladder that will take you back up to the gardens before you venture out into the swamp itself. And this is another preacher who tells you about some more people, laying out the story of Zuli, and talking about a scholar who sought the dark with learning but failed. I'm assuming he is talking about Aldea.
Yeah, it's weird because like most of the people he talks about, they're either in Dark Souls 3 or their phantom shows up.
No,
but like there's no like connection to this with anyone. I'm assuming Aldea too, but like I'm thinking maybe he's talking about Orbeck because at least we meet Orbeck in Dark Souls 3, and there's that whole goes nowhere plot thread where Yuri is like Orbeck's trying to become Lord of Polar.
Yep.
And I'm like, I guess maybe that's meeting the dark with learning. Mm-hmm. I don't know though.
Yeah, or Orbeck feels more likely. I had forgotten about Orbeck.
I mean,
how could you? He's such a memorable character.
Who would blame you for forgetting about Orbeck? Y'all forgot about Orbeck. I mean, I could see it honestly being either one. But it doesn't. It's just a game to see if you can guess. It's like a guessing game to see if you can guess which one it is.
I'm a guessing boy and I live in a guessing land.
The worst part is like when he says, "The world began without knowledge, and without knowledge will it end." People were seizing on that as like, "Oh, it's from telling you not to bother trying to figure out the story because it doesn't make sense." And it's like a meta thing. Why did you
put a story in your fucking game?
No, but it's like just because all knowledge disappears at the end of all things doesn't mean the world never made like coherent sense to begin with.
On the way there, yeah.
I don't know. I don't think that Dark Souls.
We'll get into that. Yeah,
Dark Souls is not an inherently nihilistic work.
No, I mean we'll get to it when we get to the end. But like the idea, I'm very resistant to the like this sucks because it's supposed to suck. Reading, you know, this is a anticlimax because it's supposed to be an anticlimax. This is, a bummer because it's supposed to be a bummer. I just don't, those don't jibe with me. Like,
and like I have been in enough fandoms of like SF things where when complicated plots and like story arcs start to break down, there is always a chorus of people who show up and say this is intentional. And like at this point, like I've been through that so many times that I'm like, you have to have more evidence that this is a meta thing than just like, otherwise it wouldn't make sense. You know what I mean? Like,
because that can make anything make sense.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
That's the skeleton key that you can use to unlock fiction.
Yeah, and
like I remember, like going slightly, like you've already talked about X-Men, so I'm allowed to go off topic once. Like, like when Doctor Who changed hands between producers and the current producer were like. He had this massively overcomplicated story arc that had no internal consistency to it. And people were defending that and saying, like, well, no, he's doing this to show that, like, because of time travel, nothing needs to make sense. And I think, like, everyone's like, no, it's just badly written.
Yeah. It is a fictional application of a just world fallacy, which says, obviously, this had to happen for a reason. Bad things would not happen to me, a person who likes good things.
And it's like, I'm not averse to games going, like, meta.
No.
In that. Like, I'm a defender of Metal Gear Solid 2 toward the end of that, when that whole, like, the narrative intentionally collapses in on itself.
Yeah.
And it makes a huge point out of, like, we're not sure how much of this can even be said to have happened because maybe it was all a simulation. But that's written into the story, and it's a story that is actually about, like, it is about experience, and it is about how experience is mediated, and it is about how things are perceived. So it makes sense there for them to do that, rather than, like, it doesn't make sense, I guess it was intentional, which is totally different.
Well, it commits to it, and, makes...
Like, the central thesis of that game is about the fact that, like, it's about it like the thesis of that game is this like postmodern meta thing about the series. So it absolutely from the very beginning of that game it is about that thing. That's totally different to like we just gave up trying to tell a coherent story at the end, and then I guess it was intentional.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, we run into Lap again here.
Yep.
Who's looking for this purging monument, which is the basis of that puzzle we're talking about. I believe.
Puzzle.
And he's kind of starting to kind of doubt himself. You can see this as kind of evidence of going more hollow.
Yeah.
And such.
Please, someone tell me, who am I? Why am I here? Stop it. I'm unbreakable. Unbreakable.
Unbreakable.
She's lost, damn it.
Yep. And
at that point, it's really clear it's Patches because he's called Unbreakable Patches.
Yep.
Yeah.
But then you have to solve an unintuitive puzzle to get the payoff, which is the thing you guessed in Earthen Peak.
Unintuitive patches.
Inscrutable
that would
patches.
be great.
Inscrutable patches. Like as you that's what the From needs to do. All these people are talking about what From needs to do, and I want a DS spin-off like Tingle, but for patches.
Yeah,
like
I want
just give
more,
me
like,
inscrutable
WarioWare.
patches.
Yeah,
like Captain Patches Treasure Tracker. Like
Yep. Push patches.
yeah,
Push!
Yeah.
Exclamation mark! Push! Exclamation mark! Patches.
X patches feel the magic. Yeah. So
Were you trying to make a Rub Rabbits joke, but push rabbits?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The puzzle you have to do to get this thing. In this little kind of alcove, there is a statue that says present your humanity. Right? Like present or prove your humanity.
Show your humanity.
Show your humanity. Which, like, my initial instinct was like, oh, I need to ember up.
Yeah.
Because I mean that's not what that is in this game, but like, okay, that doesn't do it. And then I didn't figure it out. I'm not afraid to admit, like, I ended up looking at the solution online.
As did I.
Yeah.
I could not figure it out.
I was stuck on this thing. Like, I streamed this, I ignored that puzzle, and I went back because I didn't want to subject my audience to like 2 hours of me dealing with a puzzle.
Right.
So, like, here's how I thought you were going to solve the puzzle, and I think we can all agree this would have made more sense. Right.
Okay.
The Herald Knights have a giant humanity blob for a head. And all throughout the game, when I've killed Herald Knights, they've dropped parts of that set. So I'm thinking, there's going to be one unique Herald Knight or a corpse or something that drops the Herald Knight head. And I'm going to have to put that on and then stand here because it's a humanity blob and that will open it. And I ran, like, from the beginning of the DLC to the end, combing over everything, killing every single Herald Knight, thinking one of you is going to drop the headpiece at some point, and it never did. And I, like...
Yeah.
So here's the solution, right, is that you go into the swamp and you either cast Chameleon or use a white birch branch. And sometimes that will camouflage you as a humanity sprite. And then you go back in there and that opens it. And, like, that makes sense in retrospect. But the thing is, like, firstly, most people, I think, aren't going to bother using Chameleon or a white birch branch in the swamp anyway.
Right.
Like, I don't know anyone who consistently does that unless they're, like, doing some tricksy run where they're trying to sneak past something.
Mm-hmm. And it's like a PvP trick is what it is. Like, it's, it's for goofy PvP videos.
Yeah. There aren't any humanity sprites in the swamp, so you wouldn't know ahead of time that, like...
Right.
If there had been humanity sprites passively in the swamp, that might have signaled, if I use a birch branch, I'll turn into one. And, like, they could literally just have put some non-hostile humanity things near that tree to, like, signal it to you, but they don't. And then even if you use a white birch branch, I think it's, like, 1 in 3 that you'll get.
That's the thing that fucking drives me nuts.
Yeah,
I kept
like,
this,
I did it, and I just got,
thing.
like, a heap of crystals.
Yep.
And then I had to use it again. Yeah. And, like, it's... to me, like, the final insult with this puzzle is, like, show your humanity, and you do it. And, like, it's not like there's this, like, and a door, like, mystical portal opens up. This ladder just goes thunk.
Yeah, like, so somebody's
this,
waiting
like,
up.
comedy timing.
Somebody's waiting up at the top to kick that down for you.
It's like
What's
the
the
end
password?
of, like, a Monty Python sketch or something. Like, they've been, like, building up, this we'll travel to heaven or something, and then there's just this pause and thunk, this ladder falls down.
Yeah, it's rough.
And, like, my Herald Knight solution is largely, like, because I had seen Herald Knights throughout the DLC.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of made sense to me. That was the humanity thing I had seen. And then, like, no, it's actually something that, like, they do not signal at all. And it has a logic to it, but it's not like the logic that they've trained you to think in terms of.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the payoff is that the guy who's obviously Patches is Patches.
Like, that is true.
Like, literally, like, I was kind of psyched for the Purging Monument because they build it up, and I'm like, wow, this is going to be... It's literally just the Velka statue from Undead Settlement, but bigger. And, like, that's all. It's not the same model, but it just has those functions. That's all.
It has the one additional function, which is... Yeah, I do not understand...
No. It doesn't. That's not even additional anymore because they patched that function into the Velka statue below Undead Settlement.
Oh, really?
So this fucking thing has no reason to. You've built up this thing that I have been able to see from all of these walkways. It's this massive, like, monolith with all these skulls on it, and like, okay, this is going to be good. And it's just like reverse hollowing for this number of souls. Like, literally, if it had even been like reverse hollowing for 0 souls, that would have been fine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this at least has a reason to exist, and it just doesn't.
And it's a trick they've already done. It's a trick they've already done in Dark Souls 2.
Yeah, it is super, super silly as a thing. And everything you mentioned would have made it work. Like, humanity sprites in the swamp would have made that work.
Yeah.
Significantly better. It still would have been a weird intersection of, like, a niche PvP item and a PvE, a critical kind of navigation mechanic. Like, this area isn't essential, but, like, you can see it and be like, I want to get up there.
The thing is, like, you say it's not essential, but it's essential to Lap's questline, which they kind of, like, they expect you to do this because, like, Lap's questline, he becomes summonable for 2 of the bosses after this. So, like, they do seem to have expected you to have done Lap's quest, like, as you progress through the city rather than just running past everything.
Yeah. And he's the only NPC quest line that is here.
Yeah. Unless Shira kind of. But, like,
I mean, moves around, you know.
Yeah.
Bah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's I don't know. The design of the thing is pretty cool. It's like a big bunch of goopy skulls around an altar. Oh well. You also find some items up here, like you find the dragon head great shield. And you also get on the other side of this, get invaded by one of the people that the adjudicators summon, Silver Knight Leto.
Yeah.
Who as the front man of 30 seconds to Mars, will attack you with a gigantic, like a special great hammer. And this dude was buddies with Havel the Rock.
Yeah.
What is I wonder what the function is about making this guy kind of have connections to people we used to know.
They say, like, he was friends with even Havel the Rock, and it's like, oh, classic Havel. Like, like we're supposed to understand Havel's personality and be like, oh, well, in that case,
Havel,
even Havel liked him. Well, I'm sold.
Havel is kind of canonically a tsundere.
It takes a little while for Havel to warm up to you. He's a Silver Knight, which is so this is the I think that there's a Vadi video that points this out as well, right? But it's the first Silver Knight we have that is a character,
right?
Like he's a dude, so it kind of tells us these are not all mindless knights, and which I guess has some kind of value.
He has a unique set of armor that's got these, like, kind of horns on it.
Yeah. And we've seen something we haven't drawn attention to. We've seen statues of the Silver Knights around.
Oh yeah.
It feels a little bit like Mary Sui. Like, oh, he's friends with the giants. He's friends with Havel. Like, it's all your friends. You like him. It's all the stuff that you dig.
Yeah. It feels a bit like again, like we're talking about, like, SF franchises that start falling to pieces. That, like, I can't think of a way to make this thing interesting on its own terms. So I'm just going to back reference things people already care about, as if it like transfers by osmosis.
Yeah, it's a fun fight. It's a little bit like fighting Havel because he's got that gigantic hammer.
Yeah.
Did we mention that, like, the adjudicator giant can also summon, like, an orange phantom version of him?
I brought that up.
Yeah, if you get... Oh, yeah, sorry, I forgot. Yeah,
and he also summons a version of Zulia as well.
Yeah,
but only when you get, like, up close. Like, both of these are deployed to, like, protect him directly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this I think concludes all of our business up here at the top. They're down on the ground, like there's just not much out there aside from avoiding whoever the adjudicator brings in. There are a couple of like little groves you can go up to along the side to get some items, most notable of which is the preacher's right arm, which is like one of the arms of these locust dudes. You also find the preacher's head, which you can wear as a helmet, and these give some background on these guys that we have kind of already gone over. You know, like, yes, they were meant to beckon people to the dark, but unable to think past their own stomachs. The unruly mob.
Mm-hmm.
And the preacher head description gets even more saucy, saying, someone must rise to the occasion and restore the path of righteousness. Perhaps that someone is you? Did you not arise from the abyss, and did you not resist drowning in the age of fire? Locusts and men are kindred spirits. Like, this thing's head is talking to you from beyond the grave as you wear it. It's the mask from Rose Matter.
It is. There is a lot more voice to the item descriptions here than we've seen before, which is, I've seen a couple, like, you know, looking around on the cesspool that is Reddit, especially Reddit Dark Souls 3, like, you know, stuff.
Actually,
lore
it's
theories. Good. So you run into people who are like making the argument, like, oh, one of the things this DLC does is it finally reveals who's been writing the lore descriptions. And I was like, whoa. You know, I just saw the headline and I was like, and they're like, yeah, you know, this new voice that comes through, it's the priest, it's the locust priest who wrote all the lore descriptions. And like, I don't buy that, but if that was more concretely revealed, I would almost respect how ballsy that would be.
Yeah.
You know, to be like,
it would actually fit with the way that like they're talked about as like writing these sermons that are beckoning people. So it's like, all the, like, they know everything and they've been like buttering you up the whole game, like the whole series, telling you all this stuff.
Well,
and
initially,
now they're revealing,
when I first saw the headline, I was like, oh, like, you know, just because of the area, I was like, are they implying that it's patches? Because I think that owns. Because he's been in every other one of the games. He's been like, through history. Like, I could almost totally dig that if the last item description you found in this thing was like, asterisk.
If it was
and
signed,
then, like, several lines, like, except for clerics, and you're like, oh shit, you know, this changes everything.
Well, Patches did appear to write his own ashes description. If you if you kill him and get his ashes, the ashes are like this story about how great Patches was. He was like a friend tool.
Yeah, like and the horse ring. It's like he wrote a description of that too, which is like very funny.
Yeah.
So there's this kind of like on the swamp. You can also go to the far end of it and run into the Dragon Slayer armor here, which is you know, I'm already fighting a lot of things at this point, so I just ended up running. And this was where you like fight a boss and the summoner at the same time.
Right.
But
that's not a bad fight, and also, like, you know, you never fought him alone anyway. Like this is just him replacing the butterflies with these with these summoners. Again, doesn't make it good, but it lines up. The description of his gear, so you can get it. It's cool and good armor. But this confirms that we are, you know, far into the future at this point, because it talks about, you know, the armor defeated by the champion of Ash and Lothric was left to ages to rust until it slipped into an abyssal swamp where it was possessed once again by the memory of the hunt. So you are back to kill it again, you as the champion of Ash of old.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I guess the way that it specifies, like, it was possessed once again by the memory of the hunt, like, that kind of, like, it clarifies a bit what Dragon Slayer armor is when we fight it the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're, like, when we fought it the first time, people were wondering, like, is there a guy in there? Or is it a marionette that the butterfly is controlling because the butterflies die when you defeat the armor? And,
nobody suspected the butterfly.
Yeah, no one suspects the butterfly. But I'm guessing this is confirming, like, it's just like an animate suit of armor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it's a very mercenary animate suit of armor. Like, it could have been taken over by the butterflies before, and then now, you know, like all this other gear that has sunken into the waters is coming back with a new purpose. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fine. That's consistent.
Yeah. To your right as you leave here, this is kind of the critical path, which I also think is a little bit hidden as well. There's this kind of sinking church kind of crawling with these ring knights.
Mm-hmm.
and you head over to this kind of ridge on this way that goes to this bridge where we run into Dark Eater Madir for the first time.
Yep.
If you want to fight Dark Eater Madir, actually fight him, you have to take him down on this bridge. Or no, he hasn't shown up yet. This is where he's just breathing fire.
It's the next one.
This is the reference to the bridge, Dragon Bridge Souls thing.
Mm-hmm.
So he just kind of breathes some fire. You wait, and then move on to the shared graves.
Thankfully, even though this is the longest bridge run that you had to do, consistently, like there was a whole area that was a bridge run and Demon Souls, there are patches, and not the one we're going to meet, but patches of like safety that are just not lit up. And there are also like little side roads you can run into, and the Lothric thieves that will push you back out into the fire.
Yeah.
I saw it was funny. But yeah. Guys, why don't you dig this as much as I do? Yeah, just a little bit. No, but at the top of this is a very good, I don't know. It is a new area. It's a tower called the Shared Graves, and this is like a miniature catacomb with a little bit of navigation. I don't know, puzzles, difficulties as the stairs break out from under you, and you need to figure out how to get around these, setbacks.
Yeah. I got stuck here for a while. This was the point I got stuck when I was streaming, because it's not immediately apparent, like, are you going down or are you going up a lot of the time? So I'm like falling down and running up and then realizing there's a dead end and falling down again. And, and like it doesn't do a very good job of kind of communicating where the way out is, because it looks like every other room, but there's just an extra door at the end of it.
Yeah. It wants you to peek your head into all those rooms and fight a bunch of skells.
Yeah.
I'm
down for a skeleton fight.
Yeah. This is a weird, like, this is the section where the DLC lets up a difficulty quite a bit. After the fighting the church giant in the swamp, like actually from here on out the encounters are pretty reasonable.
It's like quiet time kind of thing.
Which is cool. Like it desperately needed
definitely.
It's been going full throttle for like 3 hours, and then now now it's chill. As you're going through here, you get invaded by a guy who looks just like Aegon of Cream, who probably is Aegon, the Moaning Knight.
Yes.
It's you're fighting him on this really interesting kind of ground. This spiral stairs kind of thing. What ended up happening to me was he just fell off because I got high enough. But it's a cool place to fight because of these drop-offs and stuff. And you're always tempted to duck into these side like areas if you need to heal, but it's full of skells. So I think this is actually a pretty cool NPC invasion.
Yes. This whole area, like something we didn't mention back before, but it extends a little bit into this. There are these purple crystals that are popping up, like the curse crystals, and these are even kind of like corrupting some of these catacomb areas too.
And we'll see them kind of later on as well.
Yes. So this is where Lap's quest comes to an end.
Spoilers, please.
He appears and directs you, to some treasure at the end of a staircase, and then Lap's armor comes up and kicks you down. And as you look up, he's not kicking you into direct danger, which is, like he's rusty, hasn't done it for a while. And he pulls off his helmet. This is the second such reveal in Dark Souls 3. And kind of, delivers a little like explanation almost, and I'll cut in the audio for this as well.
Every age, it seems, is tainted by the greed of men. Rubbish to one such as I, devoid of all worldly wants. I don't know. Maybe it's just the way we are. I'll stick you in my prayers. A fine dark soul to you.
A fine dark soul with you. This like 1920s Irish cop in New York.
Move along, nothing to see here.
Move along, folks. Pretty fitting end. To Patches, I think.
Some of us will never change. It's just something about us. Yeah.
So eventually you kind of go up through the top. This is where that actual second Madeira appearance is, I mentioned, where Madeira is kind of hanging off on the top of a bridge.
Yeah.
If you want to actually fight Madeira, you have to knock him off the bridge.
No.
Yeah.
And this is fine. This felt like a good stand-in for the actual boss fight with him. I'm pretty happy ceaseless discharging him.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. Like I didn't have that much fun fighting Madeira here, but I didn't hate it.
Yeah.
Like it didn't make me quit like the actual Madeira did.
I thought this was going to be like Dark Souls 2 in New Game Plus when the Duke's dear Freya attacks you before the boss fight.
Oh yeah.
You can, if you damage her there, that carries over. So I thought it was going to be like Madeira will be here for 30 seconds, and the damage I do he's going to carry over, and eventually he'll leave. But that never happened. So
it would be cool if the damage carried over. Like I dug that about. I love that in Dark Souls 2 in the DLC or in the New Game Plus. So you head back. Now we have gone back to this outer wall that we've been to before. There's this kind of section of illusory walls we can go into in this outbuilding through 3 of them. That's a new record to get the lightning arrow. Now this is a miracle named lightning arrow. It is not a clutch of lightning arrows,
right?
Because I thought I had just picked up a bunch of lightning arrows at the end of this thing and was like, what the fuck? Like you're literally going to give me like elemental ammo at the longest chain of illusory walls that have been in the series. Like, but no, it is a miracle that is apparently pretty good.
Yeah.
I've heard good things about it.
Shira uses that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Still don't know why 3, but whatever. It was a fun joke. I laughed.
Yeah, it's kind of a goof.
It doesn't have to mean anything. I guess. Yeah. Also in this place, so we're kind of below where we were at the start. We're below the outer wall. There is a room with a very significant statue, a statue of Gwyn in his prime, extending an item to this kind of wretched pygmy that is kneeling before him. And if you go through this little navigation puzzle with an elevator, you can work your way around and drop down onto it and pick up a +3 Chloranthy ring.
Woo!
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good ring. It's a good ring, bro.
I got no complaints about the ring.
So is the argument that that's a meaningful treasure for the most important piece of
for Filianor.
This is the thing, because we're told that Gwyn has gifted Filianor to the pygmies.
Yes.
And Filianor is this she's associated with the Grasscrest shield on the items you get around Filianor.
Yeah.
That she's like a goddess of vegetation. So the idea of Gwyn giving the Chloranthy ring to the pygmies, it's symbolically him giving them Filianor.
Yes. Yeah, that's
what it is. And it's this is the thing, I didn't like that. And people are like, no, you don't get it. He's giving them Filianor. And it's no, I get it. It's just that all it's doing is underlining something that we're told on a banner description that we got at the beginning of this area.
Yep.
I get what it's going for. It's a clever little piece of symbolism, but it's not new information. And it's using an item we already have to tell us something we already know.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I don't like that, and I think that connection. So I read through all the item descriptions in the DLC today to prepare for recording. The connection between Filianor and vegetation is there, but it's not airtight and super strong. Yeah. There's one thing with her covenant where it says, it's green. It's like a crust of grass, and then there's another thing that is a crust of grass.
Yeah,
so
which
it's
is
not
the Grasscrest shield. Yeah, which was the stamina regen shield.
Yeah, it was never mentioned because she would have been scrubbed. Yeah,
the young grass do. I was looking at covenant reward things for the spear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the Grasscrest shield in the base game has, what is it referencing that?
No.
Leads
because
it to
the item descriptions talk about the crest of grass, which which refers to the Grasscrest shield, which is the shield that gives you stamina regen like the Chloranthy ring.
Yes. And the justification also works backward, confirming that the Grasscrest,
So Grasscrest to the reference to the crest on the Covenant item.
Yes.
Right? That is connected to Filianor, and then Grasscrest to Chloranthy ring.
Yes, read the description on the young grass dew as well.
Yeah, no, I looked at that. I hate that. Like I think that's bullshit. Like that is a really tenuous thing. Like,
but it's there. It's supported by the statue. Like I'm not crazy about it, but like it's like that is what they are showing you. It is a small version of the actual thing that he did, which was give his daughter over.
Yeah, it's just
I don't know. Like I don't know.
Yeah,
it's like one of those things where like people will defend it on the grounds that it is a reference that has themes in it, and it's like, I know it is. That doesn't make it good though. Yeah. Like Batman v Superman has themes.
Yeah,
that doesn't make it a good film.
Yeah,
like every like competent piece of writing will have like recurring motifs and themes, and it'll have something that it is about, but that doesn't redeem like if the story is badly written.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't think it's good. I just want to assert that it's there, that it exists. Like that is the scene that we are saying, and like it reveals something maybe more about this thing that has been around for a while. I don't think it's great, but it's there.
Well, like, I mean, it doesn't tell us anything new about the Grasscrest Shield.
No.
We already know that Fëanor is, that Gwyn gave the Ring City to the Pygmies, and we know that Fëanor was placed to kind of like steward it. We already knew those things. That doesn't really tell us anything else.
Even if instead of the Chloranthy Ring +3, it was called like the Grass Crest Ring, and it had the exact same effect as the Chloranthy Ring, and a different description that mentioned Fëanor, people wouldn't be so annoyed at it.
That might be part of what's frustrating to me about it too, because I found many of these things.
Yeah,
like I found so many Chloranthy rings, so it's a diluted piece of meaning.
And they have always been something about Fëanor, except she's never been mentioned or conceived of before this.
I think that's what's frustrating about me, is it's retconning an item that has been around way before there was Fëanor, just for no particular reason.
Yeah. Are you suggesting Miyazaki didn't have Fëanor planned out since Dark Souls?
No, 100%.
It feels like a different version of the Xanthus stuff being associated with Ulyssil.
Yeah.
It's not incredibly satisfying. I like the tableau. I like the image. What he is holding and what he is presenting, it can be underwhelming. However, like seeing a depiction of Gwyn in his prime, and also like what he wants the Pygmies to understand is their role in relation to him, I think that is effective statuary.
Yeah.
I guess I also am frustrated by, if the gods of Anor Londo have had kind of a meaning, right? So like we have like, our god of war, and then our, Gwyndolin, this kind of like dark sun or this moon kind of associated thing. Having Fëanor associated with kind of plant life or with regeneration doesn't tie in adequately to her function in this DLC as this kind of load-bearing dreamer. Like she should be the goddess of dreams or time or something like that. Like she should be associated with, not regeneration and life. We already have a bountiful, like we have a fertility kind of based
fertility goddess.
Like why like I don't know.
I think like the closest I can get with it is like the way the dark soul corrupts is seen as like dead vegetation like growing out of you, and like she seems to be connected with like living vegetation, so I they may have been going for something there, but like just the issue in general is, why the fuck is she Gwyn's daughter? Like, she could have been just like, Gwyn placed this, placed a dreaming curse upon the Queen of the Pygmies, or like, this is just a god we've never seen before, but they're making her Gwyn's daughter when like we have had like throughout the games these references to like Gwyn had 3 children, here they are. They are like the Princess of Healing, and then the Dark Sun, and the War God, and they fit together perfectly as like, you have like masculine violent god, feminine fertility goddess, and then Gwyndolin, who is in between the two. Like that worked perfectly, and then like just to just out of nowhere reveal that he has this hidden third daughter who we've never heard of. It's like ludicrous.
I think they really like the idea of Gwyn having secret kids that nobody knows about, but they do not have the willpower to.
They only like it on their terms.
They do not have the willpower to keep them a secret, right? So they revealed who the mysterious third one was. Like, fuck, there needs to be another secret kid. But then by the time this comes out, god damn it, we can't have them be a secret. Fuck.
Yeah. I literally hate everything about this.
Like
this part.
The Nameless King, like Gwyn's. They didn't just out of nowhere reveal, hey, Gwyn had an extra kid, because we've been told since Dark Souls 1 that Gwyn had an elder son who was struck from the records because of this great crime he'd committed.
Yep.
And so for them to, I'm okay with them revealing the Nameless King as like, okay, it's the end of the series now. Here's the guy you've been talking about. Maybe people aren't happy with that, but like it works for me as like, okay, you've kind of like this is something you have the right to wrap up at some point.
Yeah.
Filianor is different because it's just like, here's someone you've never heard of before who has like, and by the way, like I was saying before, it's like they couldn't come up with a way to make the character interesting, so they've just decided, oh, she's Gwyn's secret daughter you've never heard of.
Yeah.
And Gwyn having the secret daughter we've never heard of goes all the way back to that stupid fucking thing about Yorshka calling Gwyndolin brother. So it's like, well, is she also one of Gwyn? Because now you've opened the floodgates to like Gwyn having all these kids we don't know about.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, I find that this immensely frustrating and unsatisfying.
Yeah,
subtraction through addition.
Yeah, any like everything involving Filianor, and this plant association is is one of those things that I think sucks. You know, it's almost like they worked ring backwards. Like, what's a ring we wanted to give? Let's make Filianor associated with that, because we're not going to get. There's no reasoning behind it. There's no like. I mean, like you said, it could be the idea that, you know, the dark is associated, or the curse is associated with dead plant life, and she's associated with life, like real plant life. But that gets so weirdly polytheistic in a way that doesn't feel Dark Souls. Like what are these, like, you know, like a there are gods of all the different things, like, you know, that can be, but that isn't how Dark Souls feels.
Yeah, because like the Dark Souls gods, they weren't like, when you think of like the Greek pantheon or something, where there's like the god of this, the god of that, that's not what they were. They were just very, very powerful entities that happened to specialize in something.
Right.
So like Guinevere is not like all healing in the world is derived from Guinevere. She's just a very powerful character who has healing abilities.
Right.
And there are miracles like dedicated to her, some of which aren't even like things she made. You know, it's like things that her followers made and stuff. Like, you know, that idea that, like, you know, these are not you know, that's an illusion, that they, you know, these are just powerful entities, they're not holy, is kind of central to my understanding of like Dark Souls. You know, like these are not like these are it's the age of gods, but they're super fallible. Like they're, you know, fucked up. These are not,
and you can kill them. Like they're not like
they're not immortal. They're not, you know, benevolent.
Yeah.
You know, boy, is that a flavor fail. Like that is like, you know, not to use fail as a noun. Like God, we've been recording for a long time, but like, boy, is that like a unflavorful thing. That drives me nuts. Yeah. So anywho, there's a statue. Fuck it. Tip it over. Let's talk about the bosses and go.
So yeah, there's that statue. The way you get there is through this kind of hidden half floor, like from being John Malkovich. You know, that's at the end of one row. At the end of the other row is a ladder that takes you down to a chapel that has, again, more statuary. This is kind of hidden away of the serpents, showing that they have kind of cockatrice bodies.
Yeah, they look like an
like cats to me.
Serpent head. Yeah. But then and then there's the ones in Lothric where it's like a humanoid body with a serpent head, and I'm like, are they implying that like that's actually what they looked like, or is it just stylized like a gargoyle thing?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Anyway, like, Karth's going to be here soon. It's all going to make sense. Was it earlier or later? The chronology is confusing me. Like the big serpent corpses that are not the actual serpents. Oh no,
just big
that's just a pus of man.
Yeah.
Like
that's what I was going to say.
I've gone around looking at that. Yeah, people have said
a lot of people said they were serpents, but they don't have the weird waddles and.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's literally just, it's a pus of man. It's even got like Lothric weapons embedded in it, so like they've just killed it. Yeah.
Just before anybody like writes in and says we forgot about it, I want to make sure we mentioned it because we're complaining about the lack of serpents, and a lot of people think those are serpents.
Yeah.
But this chapel is the is the entrance to the arena where you're going to fight the boss, the dragon we've been seeing here. But the actual entrance to this arena is not like, hey, we're out walking into this lake. You actually do an abyss drop into what appears to be like a corrupted version of like Ash Lake or something like that, or just a gigantic underground abyssal cavern.
Reminds me of where you fight Sin in Dark Souls 2, but a bit bigger.
A lot of people are this is the a lot of people are calling this the area in the opening cutscene of Dark Souls 1.
Yeah,
a lot of people said that. Yeah.
Okay. But it makes sense because like we're going below everything and back to the beginning. So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But you're down here to fight Dark Eater Midir.
Alternatively, you're down here to fight Dark Eater Midir 4 times, and then realize that Dark Eater Midir has too many hit points.
Yeah.
And does more damage and uses his breath weapon too much, and you don't want to fight him.
Right.
Yeah.
Stop.
I'm looking at the notes here, and it just says this is an optional boss. Thankfully.
Yeah.
Yep. So you guys didn't beat Midir?
No.
No. I bashed my head against him for a while, trying to melee him, and I was able to consistently get him down to maybe 10 to 20%. But it was just became this war of attrition where he would just outlast me, and I got fed up, and I respect and just spammed Pestilent Mercury and killed him.
That's
really weak to it. Yeah. And it's he's just it's a recurring thing with the bosses here where he just it's not like an interesting moveset, it's just really high numbers.
It's super high numbers, and he has really high numbers, and it should be, I want to point out, before anyone says I didn't make any tries, I definitely did and got him down, several times, got him down pretty low. Every one of those attempts is a considerable commitment. Mm-hmm. It takes a long time to get him down to 20%. He has a lot of hit points. I have a shitty dex build. I am not doing very much damage to this guy.
He has a lot of hit points, and the way he's designed is that you have to hit him basically in the head.
No.
Yeah.
Because if you hit him in the body, it does half damage. But because he's huge, the head, he will do his breath attack and then his head drops, and that's your signal to run up and attack him. So there's a lot of just if you're just trying to hit him in the head. I know people have hit him in the knees and stuff, and they've beaten him that way. But if you're trying to hit him in the head, there's just an awful lot of just waiting and just trying not to get hit before he opens himself up. And then you will do a tiny chunk of the life bar, and then he will start again. And it's just it's attrition, and it's not. I don't find it I am an apologist for the Nameless King, because to me that fight is not attrition. That is if you fuck up, you just die. It's over very quickly if you don't know what you're doing. And, that is a fight that is very much about learning that character's moveset. Whereas Midir just seemed to be I'm just getting hit a lot, and eventually I run out of Estus before he runs out of health. And I just found it incredibly boring.
Yeah. Hits were doing a lot of damage to me, with him. Yeah. So that the running out of Estus was a big problem, because I would lose, no less than 60%, if I got caught in flames. The tail swipe is does tons and tons of damage, hugely punishing.
Yeah. God help if he just decides to whip out that jaw snap.
Yeah.
Oh god, and that grab attack where he will pick you up in his mouth while he breathes fire. Yeah.
Yeah. Really
and
intense.
Then
it looks cool, but
yeah. And then when he hits his second phase and he's casting Affinity, because why not? And it's just I had a Black Knight shield. He was doing I was blocking 95% of the damage, but I just got bored.
Yeah,
basically.
I wasn't having fun, and the one of the problems is I was okay, I'm not having fun. I'm gonna summon to just get through it. But because the stakes were so high, what often happened was my summon, my ad would get killed, and then I would be dealing with tanky you know, like, you know, two on one Midir. And I don't think the games have ever readjusted for that. Like, if you lose your summon, I don't think like that lowers their hit points. Like, I think that, you know,
like you guys posted on the Bonfire Side Chat Facebook page, like before Dark Souls 3 came out, someone had done like a comparison of the total boss hit point pools of like all the games. And there's almost a direct correlation between like what game in the series we're on and how many hit points the boss has. And they're just bloating like as the series goes. And to me, Midir is the point where it's like, this is just like fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like, I went back and I was watching people play Dark Souls 1 and he was fighting Ornstein and he's doing like 200 damage to Ornstein and it's taking off a substantial chunk of his life bar. And then you do 200 damage to Midir and it's like 1 pixel.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can chunk Ornstein. Like, that's one of my favorite things about going back to these old, you know, old entries in the series, because it's like, it's not just that they're easier, it's just less demoralizing and they're less like patience-y. Like, Ornstein and Smough isn't easy. Like, that's not an easy boss fight. It's just you make progress at a reasonable rate.
You can. I did not know this, but someone showed it to me. If you do enough damage to Midir's head for a while, he goes prone. And you can, like, riposte the head, and it does a substantial chunk of his life bar. So I think maybe they were counting on people beating, like, kind of making him prone and then doing that, like, multiple times to kill him. But, like, that didn't happen with me. No. Like, I was getting, like, 2 or 3 hits in before his head would go back up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I bounced off of him. Like, I tried him 3 times on my own. I got real flashbacks to the Ancient Dragon. And then I decided to, like, well, I'm not going to beat him for myself, but I will co-op into somebody's game, because that feels like it is less of a commitment. Like, if I can help somebody else, cool. Never really got that far, and eventually just concluded they just dropped an optional boss from Final Fantasy 12 into into this game, and sorry, not for me.
Yeah. Like I feel like in general, this DLC would have gone down a lot better had they just multiplied all the values by like 0.75.
No.
Yeah,
because I've beaten Nameless King melee. I have beaten Ancient Dragon in melee. I forced myself to do it both times, Nameless King, because it was challenging. Ancient Dragon just because like I wanted to say I'd done it. Midir was just like, I don't care. So it's not like I'm averse to difficult bosses or dragon fights or things with giant health pools. I just didn't care.
Yeah, I like Sin a lot. I like Calamite a lot.
Yeah, Sin's great.
You know, and Ancient, you know, Nameless King he's past my like barrier of being real into him, but he's not that much over it. You know, like I like hard bosses as well. This is just too much patience, and it's gonna go. The shitty thing is it's going to go down as the boss in my favorite series of video games I didn't beat. Like, I have no desire to like pick it up. Like, and I don't have that completionist streak. I'm just like cranky about it. Like,
it's just attrition. It's not like,
I mean,
like people have within like a few hours of the DLC coming out, someone had uploaded like beating Midir New Game +7 with a broken sword. Well, like, you can do it, but it takes like half an hour or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, this is not like you figured out like, I'm not taking away from how difficult that must have been, but it's like, the boss is still just a gigantic beef wall that you slowly wear down. And it's not like there's a point where it clicks and it's like, oh, I get this. Like, I remember fighting Nameless King and bashing my head against him for hours, and then it clicked and I'm like, oh, I get how you fight this guy now. And then like, when I'd figured it out, I barely got hit at all by the guy, because I know how to fight you now. That never happened with Midir. I'm just like, I just have to keep waiting, trying not to die, and then you very, very occasionally open up a weak point.
Yeah.
And then I just said, fuck it, and spammed Pestilent Mercury.
Yeah. And so the weird thing is, this is kind of like a rich get richer kind of thing, because if you do beat him, the most significant reward you get for beating him is access to this covenant that allows you to fuck over players with another boss. So like it is a real like so, and that other boss, like, which we're going to talk about, I have more problems with than I have with this, like, conceptually. Like, I think this is frustrating. That other boss I think is really irritating, but we should talk a little bit about who Midir is before we move on. So like this is a descendant of the Archdragons who was actually raised by the gods. So you get a little bit of like a cuckoo kind of thing. Like, this is raised by their enemy. and said like, hey, since you're immortal, we want you to battle the dark. Nothing can go wrong creating training a dragon to like go get corrupted. So that's exactly what happened. You can make a sword that symbolizes kind of a deer that I haven't heard a lot about. What's much more interesting is this old moonlight miracle. And the coolest thing about it is that it says it goes, it's different than the one fashioned from Pale Drake Seath. It goes from an older memory, perhaps from the beginning. It looks like a Kingsfield sprite.
It's almost exactly the model from Kingsfield 2.
It's apparently literally it is the Kingsfield 2 Moonlight Sword model.
I think that's a cute Easter egg. Like I can get down with that kind of callback. This isn't a weapon; it's a spell. We should say it's a magical blade you summon. But I think that's pretty cool. More nods to Kingsfield, please.
Yes, please.
But the biggest thing you do, like I said, is you get this the Spears of the Church covenant symbol, which allows you to join this covenant that allows you to troll Gary. If he ever decided to play this game again,
which is looking doubtful.
So.
I keep forgetting I'm the positive one.
Yes.
I'm just like
with the we're getting into my high crinkogens. Because you make this, you leave this church after this point. If you go a different way than there, to this outer wall, there's this very beautiful kind of flowered garden with a dual greatsword ring knight. They have to get past, and you get to this door where this deep voice says like, the abyss runneth deep. By the king's decree, none may disturb our mistress's slumber. And you actually go into this church. I didn't realize you could just open it. I was like, why isn't it opening? And it was because the dialogue wasn't finished. But you go in here and get to this next boss, which is the Spears of the Church. Which is a boss that can mean a lot of different things.
So the canonical version of this, and the one that has narrative implications, is Half-Light. One of the original kind of protectors of Princess Filianor, right? That is somebody who can be summoned in for kind of a more difficult version of like, hey, you're just fighting a person kind of fight.
Right. It starts off with Judicator Argo staying in the church, and he summons this offline NPC, and then there is another like a painting guardian that pops up to help that person. So I have a lot of problems with this boss fight. Like if we had re-recorded like bottom 10 bosses or something like this would end up in my bottom 10 because it is a direct repeat of something they've done before.
Twice before.
It's something they've done twice before. And the difficulty of this is so variable to me in a way that I found super frustrating. Like this just ended up being my Waterloo because everyone who I summoned to help me once I started summoning help were like fucking jabronis and couldn't weren't very helpful. And everyone I was summoning were all people to get summoned for this. You have to beat Madir. So you are likely like incredibly skilled at the game. These people were spec'd for like misery. Like
I have a story about this.
Go ahead with your story.
When I was playing it, because of the time zone difference, there was barely anyone else online because like it wasn't out in North America yet. So my summon for Spirit of the Church was Paragon DS, who's this like really well-known PvP guy on. Yeah, he was my Spirit of the Church summon. So I was like, because apparently no one else was online, and I was destroyed in like 5 seconds.
I figured I'm going to try out chess. I'm going to go down to the park. Guess what? They wheeled Deep Blue out. Oh, no.
It's like that. And I'm just like, well, it's like summoning. Oh, I wonder who it's going to be. It's like Spear of the Church, Paragon DS. I'm like, and he had invaded me like in the swamp area beforehand, I guess, because like no one else was online. So that's one of my soul's brushes with fame. I was invaded twice by Paragon DS other ones. Oh, I forgot to mention, like for this fight and for Midir, you can summon patches if you have completed this quest line. And he has a gigantic health pool.
Oh, that's good.
He's like really tanky. Like he still has chaotic AI, but he's pretty tanky.
The first couple of people who had summoned in since I was playing online had kind of reasonable kind of RPE names. So I thought I thought you could summon. I thought it was kind of a random thing. Like sometimes I got Half-Light because the connection wasn't good. Sometimes I got like, somebody named, Grull or something. Like it seemed like a reasonable name for a character. Yeah. And then eventually, so I didn't know the gimmick at first. I was just like, oh, this is kind of a cool fight where it's still not that great. It's still a 2-on-1 PvP fight, but it's like, oh, you could fight different random people, like depending. And then the first time I got like, Cuck Crusher 420, I was like, okay, like, it's Old Monk. And they actually, and he has the same spell that Old Monk gets. He gets the homing soul masses. So it just ends up being so variable, and they've done it. It's like it's this. These are the last line of defense. These are the people guarding, guarding thing. And kind of theme wise, in Demon Souls, you're being possessed by a sentient shawl, and that's why you get sucked into the other world. In Dark Souls 2, you're getting summoned through a mirror, through like this kind of like magical creature that is set up to do this thing. Here it's just people show up, like a giant makes you show up. And there's a painting guardian there. Like painting guardians have painting in their name. Like I get why he's here. It's like, oh, they work for the gods wanted to protect Fëanor. It doesn't bother me that much that it's a painting guardian, but it's still mildly frustrating. And it's still you fighting a 2-on-1 where one of them will heal the person you're fighting. So I just ended up like, rolling the dice enough times until like I fought somebody who was closer to my skill level with somebody on my side who was decent, and eventually got through it. But this was my like, it took me 12 or 13 times to beat it.
For me, like I had Paragon DS, obviously lost, and then the next time I went back, I got Half-Light, and I had like bleed weapons, so I just bled everyone out, and it wasn't really much. This is a recurring thing where just like it wasn't an issue for me, but it was just because of numbers. I'm also really bad at PvP too. Like I'm not great at like person-on-person fights. So it's not really my strength. So and that's I don't feel bad about that. That's just the case. So I'm always gonna be bad at these things. But I had way harder time than I did with Old Monk or Mirror Knight when it would summon people. And it's just I just hate that it's a repeated gimmick.
A repeated gimmick that is not twisted on. They're not. They're not embellishing it very much. You're just, these are people in service to protect a place, which is most other PvP stuff, or a lot of the other, PvP Covenant kind of things. This is the point where I come in and say that I beat it in one try because I got matched with somebody who was just okay at PvP, just like me, because I am just okay to kind of bad at PvP. So, like, again, these games find your weaknesses. Your weaknesses can change. I would like to think that there is a conservation of misery, and I suffered so much on the Demon Prince fight that they decided to pass me a freebie. It's kind of like getting, like, bereavement, the bereavement fare on a plane. Like,
like, well, I'm really glad you had good luck on this, because you were like, this is, when I got to this part, I was on Twitter, I was like, what's going to happen to the show if I just can't do this? Oh, sorry.
I'm leaving that in. You're free.
Something popped up on I had a web page running, and every once in a while you accidentally run your mouse over something that was muted because your mouse wasn't on it. Right. So it was a video of a dog that works at an airport, though. So like, just so you guys know, it's like kind of good. we could probably leave it in for a little bit of levity in the middle of this misery fest.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely leaving it in. Come on, man.
But like, I was like, what's going to happen to the show? And then I saw you tweeting about Demon Prince, and I was like, man, I hope Cole has better luck with that, because like, if you have the same experience I had, that would be 2 bosses in a row that are like multiple night misery affairs.
Yeah.
And that sucks. It's so luck dependent. There's a Kotaku piece from a writer I usually like, saying this is the best boss fight in the series that I want to like set on fire. Like, I mean, opinions are all opinions. It's fine, but it's a really bad piece of writing. Like, because it doesn't say why. It just says like, oh, it's so meaningful and momentous. It's better than the Old Monk, and better than there's no articulation as to why it is. And it drives me crazy, because it's like, oh, it's a random bullshit fight, man.
Speaking of like, Kotaku and not liking this game, like, this might be a good time to mention that there is a fairly lengthy podcast discussion between Patrick Klepek from Kotaku and a game critic called Tevis Thompson, basically about Dark Souls 3 and about the Souls series in general. And like Patrick obviously likes the series, and Tevis has had a relationship where like he's a critic who, like, Demon Souls was one of the few games he will admit to giving a 10 out of 10 to. He doesn't write for publications really, but he's like, Demon Souls is a 10 out of 10, and then. I mean, he almost never says that about anything. And then he had Dark Souls 3 as his worst game of 2016 for most of the year until Uncharted 4 came out, which when it was the second worst game of the year. And like he's not like, he doesn't like it. He's not like abrasive or salty about it. He's just like, this makes me sad to play. Like, it's depressing seeing what's happened. So like that's a good listen, because it's like two kind of different perspectives on it, but it's not in a confrontational way.
Yeah.
I bet you I get all kinds of reasonable comments about that. And just, you know, like, just speaking from experience, I feel like people are probably just like cool with him saying it's the worst game and just moving on rather than.
Oh, especially since he's working at aligned with Kotaku.
Yeah. I'm sure that's not a thing. I mean, I don't mean to dominate this conversation with these guys. Like, I have almost nothing more to say about it. Like, if it is thematically relevant, it's like, oh, finally you get a chance to be the boss, you know? And we've talked a lot on the show. What's that? Finally again.
I mean, you know, whatever. But we've talked a lot on the show about how we are resistant to a video game coming in and saying, like, aren't you the best? You know, this is, if that is the read that you're taking on it, this is your triumphant moment of, you know, going in there and, you know, it's all about you now. It is that mirror from The Big Lebowski where, you know, congratulations, urban achiever, like, you did it. You know, you're on the cover of Time magazine. No, I don't want that, and I don't think that is a good thing.
If the part after I got done with it, I was like, I'm gonna join this covenant. I'm gonna get summoned in and just throw the match. You know, like 10 times. I'm gonna give this to 10 people. But then I found out what you had to do to join the covenant, and that was the moment, like, the last of my resolve crumbled, and I'm like,
no. What I did was I just went and set my sign down so I could go in and help people. I mean, like, that was my version of it. I had a similar instinct. I was like, okay, this was easy for me. If I can make it easier for other people, you know, I can pay it forward. And then nothing.
Well, I mean, that was what I was going to do, but I'm not good enough at PvP. Like, they would probably be better off with somebody else.
Yeah.
So that's not
like
not
speaking of like thematic resonance and like Gwyn's children, like, the whole thing about a spear in the church, like, Yorshka has a church with a spear in it as well, and she's possibly one of Gwyn's secret kids. So I'm like, are they implying there's some, like, in Shadow Tower, there's a holy spear as, like, the MacGuffin. So, like, are they implying there's some connection between, like, the gods and holy spears in churches here? Because I don't. It's like this weird, like, the Filianor thing is like a weird, slightly more fleshed out retread of Yorshka, where you've got, like, the mysterious child of the gods locked up in a church with a holy spear, and I'm like, is this intentionally, like, are they going somewhere with this, or are they just out of ideas?
I don't know.
I don't know.
You've got Cole, you've got it in the notes here that, like, if you betray the spears by waking up Filianor. I thought you were just gonna say, because Shira has a lot of different things she wants. Because she also, you know, I thought she turned against me because of not killing Madir, but then I found out she does it kind of no matter what.
Yeah.
You know, because she so a little bit past this, we should talk about Shira now, even though we're not quite there.
Yeah.
Let's just get this out of the way. This is past this next little area. You do this little fight with another character here, Shira, at the end of the DLC, who kind of ambushes you in this little alcove and reads you the riot act.
I've searched for thee, dark-stricken creature. I am Shira, daughter of the Duke, descendant of gods, and trusted friend to Madir. At once, I am the honor of the gods, the glory of fire, and the fear of the dark. Thou shalt not go unpunished for thy treachery, thy profanity, and thy shameless yearning.
Kind of gives, you know, I am the Andals, king, you know, queen of the first men, kind of list of things, and fights you. I did not, you know, at this point, I was confused. Because I didn't talked to her after fighting Madeir, and didn't get all that stuff. I didn't know why she was fighting me.
Yeah.
The first time I fought her, I didn't know what this was about. It's a fine fight, but she's very confusing where she stands in the lore.
Yeah.
She's daughter of the Duke, which I don't know if it's the Duke, but we only know one Duke.
Well, she has.
It gets worse.
Yeah, she's got the scales on her model, similar to the painters.
Like her headpiece, it has the it's made from the shell of the clams that you find in Seath's cave.
Oh, gotcha.
So when I saw the Duke, it was, Duke, it must be Seath. I'm like, Seath's a dragon.
They wouldn't have done that.
They wouldn't have done something that stupid. Oops.
Yeah. So she is so it very implied she's the daughter of the Scaleless, who is now buddies with this dragon who is put in charge of
Seath, the guy who hated dragons.
Yeah. Well, this is a quisling dragon. Keep in mind, like this is the dragon they raised. They would have flushed it down the toilet when it got big enough. Like. It's
this is the thing where it's like, I get that there is a lore justification for that. It's not really an archdragon. It's an archdragon like hatchling that they raised, and it's not like on that side. But it's still, it dilutes like the thematic, like what was going on with Gwyn fights the dragons, and then his son is struck from history because the son sides with the dragons, but then because Gwyn is a dick, he becomes friends with this like quisling dragon anyway. But then, adding into that now, like, the Quisling Dragon's daughter is in charge of looking after Gwyn's other daughter, and then, like, also with no prior, build-up, Gwyn has, like, a pet dragon as well. And it's just, like, diluting the whole Gwyn versus dragons thing to the point where it's like, I don't... Like, it's lost all of it. Like
he does hang out with a lot of dragons and dragon hybrids for somebody who hates dragons.
Yeah.
That's like one of his main things.
Yeah. Oh, and also, here we have a half breed who is not hidden away in a painting, not completely obscured from the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like I'm not with SF plots that start falling in on themselves. I'm not saying that it's not explained or that you can't explain it. It's just that it dilutes the impact of what came before by constantly like putting little like twists on it to the point where like Seath's no longer like the Seath-Gwyn relationship is no longer like cool now because he had a pet dragon anyway. It's like yeah.
Yeah, it just sucks wind out of sails that were perfectly fine before.
Yeah.
It's like you made spaghetti and meatballs, right? Like you made spaghetti and meatballs, and it's a meal, and then you just start making pots of spaghetti, and then you add that to the same plate of spaghetti and meatballs, then you add more spaghetti. And you have more spaghetti. So, like, down in the bottom of this, there's some meatballs. But your meatball to spaghetti ratio is just insane.
Gary, I desperately need you to stop saying the word spaghetti. It's past midnight.
I'm never going to stop saying spaghetti.
What it's like to me is, like, those, like, the Force Unleashed games, where it's like, hey, did you know you're going to play as the secret apprentice that Darth Vader had? Like, in between, like, the movies. And it's like, it's all, like, those games are, like, they make a point to make those canonical. And, like, nothing contradicts anything. And it's like, this is part of the story now. But the idea of Darth Vader having a secret apprentice completely, like, it takes this huge, like, the impact of him trying to turn Luke is kind of gone now.
Yeah.
If you take it into account that, like, oh, by the way, he had another guy he was also training.
Hey, Rich.
That relationship is... Yeah.
Can I pull you over the side here? Hey, Gary, don't worry. We don't talk about Star Wars in front of Gary. It starts a whole thing. All right.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So back. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to let you know.
I don't have an X-Men analogy I can use.
God, it's you're not...
Well, here, let's get into it. The thing about Cyclops and Professor X's relationship is before they retconned it to have the... Anyway, no, I'm too beaten down by this to be mad about Star Wars. This is nobody tell Brian Wade because now would be my most vulnerable if he wanted to try to like get me to read.
If he wanted to swoop in.
Yeah, and just stick an extended universe novel between my butt cheeks and put me to bed. Like, this is literally the only time he could do it.
Yeah, I don't even care about Star Wars. I'm just thinking of something people know.
Yeah. This is somewhere in Indiana. Brian wakes from a peaceful slumber.
It is like the dilution is a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
Like she dilutes things. Do you guys have any good ideas on who this Mad King is that she's using as a weapon?
It's her daughter, or it's her kid. Like,
what?
Yeah, I think that she, so once a Mad King was born to the Pygmy royalty, and Shira, Knight of Philomore, put him to rest. This thing would have been undying because it would have been a quarter dragon, and it would have been the new king that she had with this Pygmy, right? And so because she was this knight, she was, set to kill it, and therefore, even though it's unkillable, she must carry it around. She delivered them together to the dark room where she stayed and held them close. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe it does it. I know it looks weird. It has horns and it has like these weird triple jointed elbows and stuff. But I didn't see
like
dragon features.
Like the Grus in Fahrenheit with the like horns and the distorted anatomy.
That's my read on it. Like by proximity, it's the only thing I can think of.
That's cool. The only reason why I think that like it being immortal doesn't mean it has to be part dragon is that like we run into a still living Pygmy king at the end of time here in just like a moment.
There's a reason that they have lived as long as they have.
No, I'm saying, but they this is Pygmy royalty. Yeah. Like that could be another one that lived as long as it did. But that's a cool idea. It kind of adds to this whole thing about Shira being, not really a complete character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they're building a lot of pathos in. Like that speech he gave was pretty cool.
It sounds cool. It was such a contextless like nothing to me though. It's just somebody coming out of nowhere and charging me with things I feel like I didn't do.
Yeah.
And telling me titles that didn't mean anything to me.
Given, like, it's especially likely that will happen given what we were talking about earlier, where you show up and the Herald Knights mean you can't talk to her properly.
No.
Well, that's true too. Is I didn't get her whole story.
Because I had no idea who she was. I had to go and read it up later because it was just like there was an NPC behind a door and then someone was fighting me.
Yeah.
And I didn't get the story until I got her armor set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what actually happens after the Spears of the Church? We got a little ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. It made sense to address those together.
Yeah. Because we're right in the run up to the end here. We actually go into Philinore's church. This heading on up to this kind of secluded room at the top of this cathedral with this admittedly again like I don't I'm not super into this DLC. I think it's okay, but I think this whole scene is pretty striking.
Yes.
It's really good. Yeah.
This woman who is Philinor, who is sleeping with this kind of broken, half crumbled egg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a spear. And is it safe to assume? I always get a little bit hesitant.
What's that? Orb status.
Yes, it is orb.
I was waiting for you to say orb.
It is cool. It is cool. It is cool and orb. No, look, but this housed the Dark Soul at some point, and it's broken because Gale was here before us.
Yeah. Do we know that though?
I mean, that's my best guess. I'm gonna say it, but yeah,
it's leaking black stuff. But I don't know that it is because we know how the pygmies got the Dark Soul, or like a more direct thing would be the furtive pygmy distributed it.
Yeah,
to the different
the Pygmy Kings already have the Dark Soul between them.
Yeah.
How I see it, right, is that everyone's obsessed with that egg, and Vati has announced he is having a screening of this anime called Angel's Egg, which he thinks might help explain what the egg is because there's an egg in that. And having seen Angel's Egg, it makes even less sense than this, so good luck. But I think the egg thing, people are looking at this the wrong way and they're assuming the egg orb thing is significant. But what they keep flagging up, the NPCs in this, is that what's significant is don't wake up Philionor.
And you literally... she's leaning on it. So
she's using the egg as a pillow. She's keeping herself like propped up on that. So what wakes the egg crumbling wakes her up because it like the thing she's resting on collapses.
Yeah.
And things don't go badly until she's awake. It's not, and like the reason it's crumbling is because it's sort of communicating to you that like this would have crumbled anyway. Like this can't sustain itself, so you're just accelerating a process.
Yeah.
Yeah, that it was always going to crumble.
Yeah, she fell asleep holding the fork. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
I definitely assumed like the kind of cataclysm thing that happens is tied to her waking up.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
the
definitely.
egg, like in Cole's defense, though, or like in Team Egg's defense.
No, I serve my purpose by making a statement with confidence and being wrong. So go ahead.
It's okay. It's we've been recording for 4 hours and 12 minutes now.
Yeah.
So this egg like looks super mystical. Like it doesn't look like something propping somebody up. Like it's a broken egg that's leaking weird black stuff.
Yeah.
It looks just like a vagrant, which is super weird. And I don't. It's hard to ascribe meaning to that, but it looks like a vagrant.
Yeah. And if
to
you,
me,
if you get the design works, there's concept art of the egg, and it has in it like those crystal growths that you see in the swamp that they're like meant to be eating it away, but that's not on the model that we see in game.
Right, just kind of goopy.
So I don't know what like if they're supposed to be there or they just left them out or.
Yeah.
It's still like super like this is one of the and people this is unusual for my approach to this game, but this is something where I'm willing to let the specificity of the egg go because of like this being like one of the like more cool things to happen in the series even, I think.
Yes, yeah.
Like this looks so cool, and this happened like this is such a like it is Dark Souls 3 is low on those like your stomach drops out moments.
No.
Like those like finally seeing King Vendrick moments because it is like I don't care about the character, so it is mostly contextless.
Yeah.
But what happens sometimes is you get something like this where just purely through kind of visual and art direction, like it actually does the work. And this feels like this does the work.
Yeah. I love the design of Filianor herself because mostly she's unremarkable, except for the fact that she has like tear stains on her around her eyes that are kind of like they look like veins or like innervation or something like that. Like, and it's especially striking when she does wake up, and those kind of get more prominent as they, as the skin on her face stretches.
Like we know almost nothing about Filianor as a character, but it is safe to surmise that she has had a pretty miserable life, being kind of, not enslaved, but kind of set up as this load-bearing character in her father's
like
gift.
literally since before the first game, she's just been asleep.
Yeah. So, what she has been doing, and the purpose of her being asleep is that there is something about her dreaming that holds the Ring City in a kind of stasis, right?
Yeah.
And, kind of keeps the Pygmy Kings, alive as well. Like, obviously things here are rotting. There's, abyss that is creeping in. Like, it is in a state of decay, but your waking her causes, everything in this glow and the flash to like snap forward to the present, to where the world is covered with ash, to where she, is dead, desiccated, mummified.
I did not I this is as an isolated moment, like it's like a stomach drops out thing that happens. But like after the initial shock wore off, I was like, oh, come on, kind of, because like we have just been through all this like ash and broken shit. And then we get to the Ring City, and it's like interesting. It's something new. It's like verdant. It seems like it's reasonably like it's like this oasis in a desert. And then to have the reveal be no, it's just more ash is like, oh, really?
It feels like they're trying to rebottle the appeal of Dark Anne Orlando a little bit.
Yeah, she reminds me a lot of like if you dispel the illusion of Guinevere.
Yeah.
She also
that's another one of those. Yeah.
She also kind of makes me think of like Ludleth, the way that Ludleth talks about like there's all these weird implications that like Lothric's the way it is because of Ludleth. He's like that he talks about like the fire went out, but then I became a Lord of Cinder and I willed a new world. And I think maybe Filianor is a similar thing, that like her dreaming is keeping this whole thing together.
Yeah.
In the same
It's pretty hard to know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, and again, like this isn't like this is cool because this is like we were talking before about things being developed to the point where they seem like loose narrative ends. This is never really explained, so it's not annoying because it's like just this. It just works off this like dream logic, and I'm like, I'm fine with this. As a princess, she wakes up, the world ends. That's all I need to know.
Yeah,
it's a very Bloodborne thing. Like I feel like Bloodborne crafted in a lot of that kind of stuff that I really dug.
Yeah. It's not like there is like a separate area dedicated to the contradictory backstory of Filianor's egg like that.
Well, not yet.
Well,
so one of the things about this being kind of the end, though, and what exactly is happening here, whether it's dispelling, because I don't think it's an illusion. This idea of it keeping the kind of the pygmy kings alive is interesting, but it also, by the time when we run into, so we get to the end of the world, we have the pygmy king that's kind of crawling to Filianor, who tells us that
the Red Hood is come to eat us, to eat our dark souls.
We see Gale. Gale's been at work for a while.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird if this is the natural state of things, if this isn't us actually in kind of the future or what the chronology is. Mm-hmm. That doesn't bother me that much, but it's not cut and dry exactly what happens.
Yeah.
Because Gale has definitely been chomping down on Pygmy Kings for quite some time.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah. Well, the way it's explained is like he comes to the Pygmies to seek their blood to use as pigment because he wants, like, he's serving the painter, and she needs blood to paint the painting, so he's gone to get the blood of the people that hold the dark soul. But then when he gets there, the blood of it's described as having dried up, whatever that means. I guess maybe they're mummified in the same way that
like an aged corpse.
Yeah,
the blood will
so
coagulate.
There's no like substance in them that can be used as pigment. So he just starts like chomping down on them to consume like the dark. It makes me think that like, is he like a bird and he's going to eat it, and then his plan is to go back to Arendelle and just like vomit up
regurgitate on the thing.
Just regurgitate bits of dead pygmy.
You know what? Like, not to be the kind of insufferable lore person I hate, but that almost makes sense with Arendelle with the all the crow people. Like maybe that is actually how they do that. I took it as he's trying to, like, if he can eat these souls, it can kind of become of him, and then his blood will work for it.
Well, that's what he says. Like after, like in the cutscene when you face him, he's bleeding out of his chest. He says, "Oh, is this it? Is this the blood of the dark soul?" Like, to me, it seems really clear that that's what's happening.
Yeah. We're of course talking about Slave Knight Gale. Before you get to Slave, I guess, I just put in that pause for the music, but before you get to him, there's one ring knight way off on the left hanging out.
He gives you a slab.
Okay.
Yeah, he gives you a slab just in case you're not all slabbed up for the final boss fight of the final game in the final.
Slather up your slabs.
Yep. So let's see, I got 16 slabs. What do you get?
It's like
10 levels older and deeper in debt.
Could have just patched in an enemy that randomly dropped slabs, but no, we have to have fixed slab drops, but to make sure you can come up with multiple builds, they have to be like 20 of them. It's like,
or make sure there's an enemy there. Yeah. Like at this point, you're about to fight Gale. Like, why couldn't that just be a slab on the ground? Like, literally, let me have whatever build I want for this fight. Like, give me the Slabapalooza 2017. Like, you walk into a room that's just Slab City. Like, if I haven't figured out my build by this part, I am in trouble. Exclusively for people who want to use that the Spear of the Mad King or whatever on this fight.
Yeah.
The Crucifix of the Mad King.
Yeah. Can we actually do the music drop?
Yes. Here we go.
So after you defeat that Ring the Knight, you are here to fight Slave Knight Gale. Welcome to Night Gale.
It starts out good at first and then becomes insufferable. And then people start posting memes from it on Facebook and you'll start to hate it.
No, so he rises up from his feast. He has turned to devouring, much like the locusts do, and he starts charging at you. And yeah, this is a 3-phase fight, but he has one single health bar, which is nice. Yeah, he has a lot of health, too much. It is a problem that is endemic to this DLC.
It's like the culmination of when Artorias isn't on screen, everyone should be asking, where's Artorias? Because not only does he have like a very similar moveset to Artorias, the way it starts with him like having killed anything and like throwing it's like a direct lift of what Artorias does when you fight him.
No.
Yeah, he's like he's Artorias like mixed with a little bit of some of the cloak attacks remind me of Maria, like the kind of flame flourishes.
Yeah,
and then a lot of guts, like with the repeating crossbow thing.
Yeah, he's real gutsy.
He's like Todd McFarlane's Gale. Like they redesigned the character. Now he's got like a sentient cape and like a hole in his chest and a giant like fucking crossbow.
Yeah, he's no longer just
those damning things I've heard about this like fight that a lot of people like.
Yeah,
it is like Todd McFarlane rebooted Gale. We've all seen Gale. He's been hanging around.
Yeah, he's just a dude. Yeah,
this is the Marvel Knights version. Yeah.
But yeah, he's big and he's very bestial. Like he charges around. He fights on all fours like Vort. You know.
Yeah.
And he attacks with a sword, and he's incredibly aggressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is definitely feels like it is evoking Artorias to me most.
Yeah.
Out of everything that he evokes.
And like it like this is another thing about like the context in which I'm playing this. Like I do not mind him invoking Artorias in a vacuum because he has consumed the Dark Soul. So it makes sense for that to be an Artorias kind of thing, because Artorias was in the Abyss getting corrupted. The thing is, like, they have, like, played out the Artorias thing so badly at this point that I'm just like, there's a fucking Artorias cosplay convention boss fight where you fight multiple guys who all have Artorias' moveset. And I'm just like, after that point, I'm like, no, this well is dry now. You can't keep going back to it.
Yeah. It's almost like they had to just because it's a really well-loved boss fight.
Yeah.
And they wanted to end on something like that. This is something where he's a 3-phase boss fight. Even his level of health doesn't bother me. Like if his level of health or he didn't have that 3rd phase, I would be fine.
Yeah.
Like I don't hate this boss fight. I don't. A lot of people, best in the series because that's whatever.
Whatever is most recent is the best.
Yeah, is best in the series. Yeah. I don't think that. I think this is pretty middling because it is a little bit too much. But not so much. Not Madir too much. Like the first 2 phases, I consistently had a lot of fun fighting him.
Yeah.
It just became attrition because of either because of his like super devastating 3rd phase attacks, which just used up a lot of my Estus, or just I couldn't get his HP down in time. So like ultimately ended up summoning help for him, and I want to give a shout out to the summon known as 2, just the number 2, who was like a champ and was awesome and helped me out and like. The first time I summoned, I got him. So, like, I felt really bad reading about Allison's experience with this, which was a never-ending nightmare.
I was involved in that.
Yeah.
I was Like, this is, like, something we would, like, the idea, Slave Knight Gale, why don't you just get good? And it's like, Allison is someone who, like, has been playing since 2009. Like, she imported Japanese Demon Souls and was playing it, like, using all these like online things to reference what all the commands did, and has been like really, really involved in the series up until this point. And the idea that like she has just decided arbitrarily, I don't like hard bosses is like ridiculous. No, like this boss is actually too much.
Yeah.
Like it's not
Allison's
like
not
a hard boss.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
Like she's patient.
And like again, it's a numbers thing again, because like she was summoning, like when I fought Gale, the first time I fought him, I got him down to like 1 pixel of health, and then he got me. And then like I got him on my 3rd attempt. And like us summoned, like she had me and 2 other people, and the health bar had just bloated to the point where like it's just like we can't. Like just wearing him down was taking too long.
Yeah. I think it is almost really good.
Yeah.
Like it is almost, and the part of it that's almost good, I like more than I like Soul of Cinder.
Oh, yeah.
Like as far as ending fights for it. Like I think it is a cooler fight than that.
Yeah.
It's more imaginative. There's kind of like that crossbow is like mixes things up in a really interesting way, I think. And you can learn it. Like the crossbow, which I talked to a lot of people who died from it a lot. And like once you get it, it's like, oh, you can roll. This is an opportunity. Like if you dodge the direction and then roll through, like you can get in hits. Like finding those places was really fun. I just didn't want to do it forever.
Yeah.
And that was really the issue with him.
Yeah. If they just eased back just a little bit.
Yeah.
Not
again,
ease, because
like
that's the wrong word. Yeah.
Yeah. times 0.75. 25% less health.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
would have made this like a good like a great boss.
Because like I like the escalation. I like when he has that moment where he stands up and realizes, oh, I've got the blood of the Dark Soul.
Is this the blood? The blood of the Dark Soul.
And gets more capable. Like phase 2 of this is really good. I like it a lot. But like when he gets the cloak that does the follow through, when he gets the Way of White Corona, the teleporting is a bit much. And I think that even the lightning is a little bit too much. It was before I figured out the way where the lightning strikes would fit. But like the escalation on this feels really cool and dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit like don't have that third phase, or just make that third phase be a little bit briefer.
Yeah.
And I think I would have dug it. And this is all, again, for my kind of nerfed Dex build. Like I was not doing very much damage per hit on this guy. And apparently he bleeds. I feel like my bleed was pretty high, but maybe I just wasn't hitting enough times in a row to proc it.
I beat him by bleeding him, basically.
Yeah. And even if you do bleed, like if you bleed him, I was doing something like 150 damage per hit. The bleed damage for him on like the weapon I had when I looked it up online was something like 650.
Oh Jesus!
So it's a few extra hits.
Yeah.
But it's not like you're not chunking him. It's not like the Dancer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where like Dancer of the Boreal Valley, you bleed and it just like thwomp. There goes like 15%.
I initially assumed he was immune to bleed until it started happening. I'm like, oh okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So almost a real good fight, not quite great level for me. Like I think the Demons is probably my favorite boss fight in the DLC, or that's probably about equal with this, and then the middle ones I didn't like.
Yeah. But yeah, the arena here is cool. I don't mean to prolong this, but you are in this kind of gigantic ashen desert that has these chairs around. There are 8 lords of I was about to say Londor. There are 8 pygmy kings. The last one approached you, is crawling on the ground. I waited for him to get to Filianor.
Lots of people did.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet summer child.
Well, I mean, you ran out of patience. I wasn't out of patience at that point. I don't know if that qualifies me as a sweet summer child. I just I was hopeful that there would be something, but no, he just repeats his last line and then
was
dies.
Streaming when he showed up, so I just took like an impromptu vote in the chat about, do I leave this guy alone or do we just kill him and see if he drops something? And he doesn't drop anything.
Yeah, I would have liked to have mercy killed him, but.
Yeah. One thing about the Pygmy Lords is like, again, like kind of resonating with something without really giving us new information, is that like there's 8 of them arranged 5 and 3, which is how the sigils work with Henri and you, that you have 5 and Henri has 3.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Yeah. And then like that together forms whatever lets you become Lord of Londor. Oh, wow. So I'm guessing like, I used to think that was like an arbitrary thing that like, I guess Henri just had 3, but it looks like there's something about, there has to be like 8 fragments or something in you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, it doesn't really tell us anything new.
No.
It's just like a little, I guess this is significant. And like you can see that like this Filianor's Rest is like one side of the arena and the other side is that tower you see from the previous bonfire, the first bonfire, but there's nothing, it's just there. Like it hasn't collapsed or anything. So I don't know what significance it's supposed to have.
Yeah,
I don't know either. So we learned a little bit about Gale just through his stuff, but not as maybe as much as you might think.
Right.
It's all stuff we more or less know.
Yeah. It describes a lot of prescience to him because it says here like, hey, he wanted to get this pigment, all right, yes, but Gale knew he was no champion and that the Dark Soul would likely ruin him and that he had little hope of safe return. So this implies that he knew he needed a champion of Ash to withstand this. It also implies that he knew he would go there, get the blood, be turned, and he needed the champion of Ash to kill him so they could be the safe vessel back for it. That's an awful lot of stuff to assume is going to go right.
Yeah.
It could literally just be he was hubristic, went there, and it's up to you to finish his job because he could not.
I think like Gale is a cool like idea for a character that I think isn't really developed very well, because you have like one interaction with him in the whole series, which is when he's in the, because like the idea with Gale is like he has a mission, and that is the only, he will just carry out that mission regardless of like what it takes. So his mission was go get paint for the new painted world. So like that, because he is so single-mindedly obsessed, he has gone to like the end of the world at the end of all things, and like fought his way through the Ringed City and killed the Pygmy Lords and eaten them, because like all he cares about is I have to get the blood of the Dark Soul. But like, and like said that way, like he kind of seems like a compelling character, but the problem is you meet him once in the cathedral and he just traps you in a painting and laughs, and then the next time you see him, he's the Hulk.
That's the thing, is that it would be, if this were a character that the game previous to this was about, you know, it would make a big difference. You know, like one of the things that we talked about a lot with Dark Souls 3 in comparison to previous entries in the series is that by the time you meet someone to fight them in previous entries, a lot of times you felt like you got to know them, because the areas leading up to them, the levels, everything was about them and let you get to, you know, there was characterization. And there's not a lot of characterization to Gale. You know, like, he's lowly station. That's what we got.
People who have been critical of this boss, like there's been one of the rebuttals to that is like, oh, you just don't like him because he's a character of lowly status and you wanted to fight a god. And it's like, no.
Certainly
people
not
have been
like,
saying that a lot. And it's like,
fuck that. No,
but like,
I would like to
like
fight
the
a
most
character.
beloved, the most beloved characters in the series are like Sigvard. Like characters like that, who's like, and like the people like really feel bad for Yorm and stuff. Like, you know, these like, because they actually have humanity to them.
And this is, it's just, there's just not enough screen time for him. And the other kind of, you know, again, we kind of addressed this briefly at the beginning of the early episode, is that like one of the things when people say this is just a side thing, that's the other defense I've seen, is that like you're expecting a lot from this last boss that is not really the last boss of the game. However, like this is at the end of the world after watching, you know, the time princess wake up after the egg crumble. Like this has a momentous air to it. Where you could reasonably expect somebody who is, if not, again, not of import, like stature in terms of the world itself. Like I don't care about the stature, internal stature.
No.
You know, I care about like how cool I think they are, how important they are to me as the player going through it.
It's like we were talking about like before, that people say like the whole of this DLC is a side story, but it's a side story that is like scaled 40 levels higher than the end of the game. Which like the old Hunters is pretty tough, but like Orphan of Kos is scaled to roughly the level you need to be to fight Gurman, basically. And like, so the like it's kind of, it's not one or the other. It's like this recurring thing with Dark Souls 3 that like it doesn't seem to know what it wants to be. So like I don't know if this is supposed to be a side story about a painting or the apocalyptic end of everything, and it's kind of both, so it's neither.
It's like he's on a mission to, you know, get this pigment to make his own Hail Mary pass to find someplace to go after the world ends. And so maybe that's like a tenuous link. It also gives a little bit of justification for Frida, because Frida could be somebody that he led into the world thinking that she was going to serve the purpose that you did, but she fucked things up. I mean, like, exactly. Like, and then the ashes were two. You know, like you know, here you go. I need you to get her out of my world so we can get this right, and then I can go on my quest, and you can help me fulfill it. Again, a tremendous amount of foresight.
And it's almost like you kind of want Gale to fulfill a similar, like the way that the game will not shut the fuck up about Pontiff Sullivan being responsible for all these things that are happening. And it's like, maybe if like Gale's hand were like shown a little earlier on, that like there is this like immortal, like it's a cool concept, this immortal slave who just, he's like the Terminator, and he just has like one goal and he will not stop until he's done it, regardless of, you know, how convoluted, how many people he has to kill and how many like horrible schemes he has to involve himself in. All that matters is serving like this little girl. But then it's rushed through like really quickly.
And the ultimate thing that drives me, you know, bonkers about it, and this is a big disagreement I have with other people who are deriving more meaning from this than I am, is that when you get this blood of the dark soul, and take it to the lady in Ariandel, she says like, Kole, you could put in the dialogue if you want to, not to give you work.
No, I mean, this is, hey,
it's significant. It's the end. Let's.
My thanks, Ashen One. With this will I paint a world. Please tell me thy name. I would name this painting after thee.
And here's the important part.
I will paint a world of that name. It will be a cold, dark, and very gentle place. And one day, it will make someone a goodly home.
And then you can name it after yourself or refuse. If you name it after yourself, it's probably Ash. And people have ascribed a lot of meaning to that. Like, that is the out. That is the third way. That's the cycle not being. That's where people will live peacefully. Mm-hmm. That's the same. That's almost quoting. That's quoting everyone who's ever talked about painting worlds that are all horror shows. Like painted worlds are not good places. Like it started as a prison plane, which it is for in my headcanon it still is. For some reason in Dark Souls 3 it became a place for like sad stuff. But every time it's sad birds. It is still beholden to the same cycle. It's just a different kind of articulation of it.
Yeah.
And just so it is going to become a nightmare. Like
it's going to rot.
And the weirdness of like the painted world exists within another painted world, like a Russian doll, which like again is kind of an interesting notion, but then like they don't make anything of like, well, is for that to work, like, well, would like the painted world is absolutely tiny. It's not like a whole world. Yeah. So it's like it kind of implies this like turtles all the way down thing with paintings, but like all it does is it gestures toward it and doesn't tell you anything kind of meaningful or evocative about it. It's just like you think back and like, oh, there's a painting in that painting.
Well, and everything we know about painted worlds does not suggest what she's saying. Like it is an ironic thing. It's only kind of been said ironically. And one of the things I get to toss a little shade at the Bamco marketing guy who runs the Dark Souls Twitter account. Who was like, oh, this is answered somebody's question and said like, oh, it is a new world where humans can live peacefully or something. And then later in like Reddit admitted like, oh, I don't know. Like I'm just making up shit.
No one knows.
I flipped off my webcam hoping that maybe the image would get to him.
Like through some kind of complicated internet of things.
Because like we're told about the cosmology of this world at the beginning of Dark Souls 1. And absolutely fucking nothing in that suggests this is happening in a painting. You get a whole world creation story about like the Ash Lake and the dragons and everything. And like Ariamis is treated as this like weird little pocket universe. It's not treated as this is the next part of this cycle that's going on.
I didn't even think about it as they were trying to start a new cycle like Dark Souls 1. I was literally just thinking of a different Ariamis or Ariandel, just another pocket universe.
I actually saw it as like at the very end when they say one day I will name this painting Ash, and I'm thinking, so is she painting Ash Lake for like the ash dunes that begin the cycle of Dark Souls 1 again?
Oh Jesus!
Yeah,
but the thing, but like the stupid thing is that like the painted worlds we've seen are tiny, self-contained things. They're not whole worlds.
Yeah.
Like the painted world in Dark Souls 1, it is literally just like that kind of like chapel island fortress thing that's on the painting. It's not like it's a painting of a whole, it's a painting of a place. You go into that, nothing exists. Be like you can see mountains, but presumably there's nothing there because the painting itself just shows that structure. Yeah. And it's just like,
and even if that were not true, like that is true, and then even if it weren't, it's a nightmare. It's full of bone wheels and fucking plague hollows and stuff, and like. And then Ariandel is no better. It's full of like nightmare birds and civil war and like, birds dragging their intestines about and stuff, who all are happy. There's several of them are happy about it. Like, hey, let's just settle down in the rot. But that's no different than the piece of the dark that we've been tempted with the entire series. Right. Yeah. Like, so the idea, there's always been the seductive, peaceful element to this terror that can happen. That's not new.
You just let it happen.
Yep. It was
the rot. Yeah,
it was a piece that was not unlike the dark. Yes. Like it's all proxies for the same idea.
So like, if this new place that we can do the same thing we can do in the old place, like if we can just let the dark come in this new, like why make a painting where we can do a smaller version of the thing we can do on a large scale now? You know, how is that meaningful and interesting? You know?
Okay, so Dark Souls 52, we create a painting that is just a room where you walk into it and you turn into a skeleton, and then that is it. The paintings have dilated down or irised down to just be that. Like nowhere else to go. Fuck.
Yeah, it's no longer a painting. It's one of those little keychains that just has one painting that you look through.
I seriously thought this is not like wouldn't it be cool? This is like my horror nightmare version of how it would end. That it would be like the ending of BioShock Infinite, and you would walk through all of these different paintings that all represented different worlds.
Oh,
in this like weird gallery thing about how like it's always the same story every single time with like the painter narrating it. And I'm glad that didn't happen because it would have been stupid. But
it zooms out to the dark gallery, you know, and like yeah.
It's like the ending of Chrono Cross. Like we just get a live action picture of somebody dancing in the streets with a painting.
Yeah. Man, I found it to be a pretty unsatisfying ending.
Well, there's no pomp around it. There's no cutscene. There's no. I mean, there's one small new piece of dialogue after an okay boss fight.
Yeah, you know, even if it is a pretty good boss fight, it still doesn't. You know, I have to even to make that kind of happen. That they could be going for this idea that you can, you know, actually have a cold, dark, and gentle place where you succumb to this darkness. Even to make that true, I have to kind of squint. So to make it a repetition of ideas we've already done, I kind of have to squint with it. And there's so much dilution to get there. There's so much, you know, Shira and so much of these kind of new characters and new connections that don't feel additive.
Yeah.
You know, so like as much as, you know, at the beginning of these episodes, as I mentioned, like in final summation, like I think this is a much better DLC than Ashes of Ariandel. It's not an absolute embarrassment. It's just not particularly, it's not super, super good. And it doesn't do the things that I feel like Dark Souls 3 needed to do to kind of be redemptive.
Yeah. No, like this doesn't change my opinion of the base game. It doesn't do anything to put it in a new light. And so like this could have been a chance to re-examine the entire work and have it be tied together and, you know, talk about it like in a way that the old Hunters did, or in a way that Artorias of the Abyss did. And on one hand, you could say that is an unfair comparison to make. You know, you're not going to always hit it out of the park at every at bat, but they have before. And I will repeat what I said at the end of the Ashes of Ariandel, which is, they've never disappointed me before. You know, even with Dark Souls 3, hey, they could have been a scholar kind of thing. Who knows? Maybe they could have, again, tied it together, put the pieces closer. But no, like, we thought Krusty was going to get here. And we say that as a joke so much. We say it so much, but like, it is an apt comparison. And it didn't. And I don't have anything new to say about all of this, like, as a whole.
To me, like, there has been a lot of negativity aimed at the negativity, which is people saying, like, you expected too much of this. But, like, part of that is on the base game for leaving people with, like, feeling incomplete.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people would have been fine with a side story if the base game felt like it was like everything actually clicked together. People wanted resolution to problems they actually had. This wasn't like, I need like when Bloodborne came out, like that's a story that's almost entirely opaque, but no one was complaining like, oh, we need more, we need answers. And then when the Old Hunters came out and provided, that was like it added so much, but at the same time, like people weren't, it wasn't on the Old Hunters to answer these questions. No one expected that. And that it did, like, made the work richer, but Bloodborne works without the Old Hunters.
Mm-hmm.
But with this, there was so much, like, it's going to all click together because we know that they have planned these DLCs. When they released the game, they said there's going to be 2 DLCs. So, like, all of these, like, little tangents I was talking about that don't go anywhere, there was, people were kind of, there was goodwill around, like, well, I guess that'll be resolved at some point. And now that they weren't, they just stand there as tangents that don't work.
Yeah.
And to me, like it's not. Yeah, people were not expecting. It's not too much to expect that the story like hang together.
Yeah,
that's just basic.
I said it at the beginning of last episode. It carries, the burden or the expectation of finality, right? I'm not asking for them to cut my steak and chew it for me. I am fine with ambiguity. I would like them to at least give the indication that the lines would start moving back together. I don't know. I lost my thread. I had like a real sound. Oh, here's my slam dunk. Like in a way, like in very broad strokes, they put together something that might have been an ending. Like they take it all the way back to the beginning. By talking about this unseen covenant that was made, right? And simultaneously, they take it to the very end. Like literally, you are at the end of the world. And I thought that like, oh, this exists at the end of the world. Oh, it's going to be like at some far extreme. No, this is like the restaurant at the end of the world. Like this is this is a moment in time where this city exists and has always existed and it wouldn't have always existed because that egg was going to break. That's what eggs do.
Yeah.
There. So like in a broad strokes, like they like, haha, we have the structural victory, but again, nothing in it hangs together and meets that expectation that like, again, those lines do not approach. They diverge.
Yeah.
It's, I feel like I've more or less said my piece. On it, between and throughout the whole season too, right? Like, so that we're going to talk about during the appendix stuff too. Dark Souls 3 stuff's going to come up, but like, it's kind of ultimately my disappointment. And I recognize for some people, like that's not what you want to hear, as I said at the beginning of the first episode of this. And for a lot of people, this DLC was redemptive. Yeah. I talked to a lot of people who didn't like Ashes, who didn't like Dark Souls 3 that much, and loved this. They're like, oh, the magic's back, and I wouldn't take that away from anybody. It didn't do a lot for me or for us, really, it seems like, and that's just kind of gonna have to be how it ends. Part of the that Krusty's gonna get here is that idea that like it's not even just the joy of going out on a good note, it's that when this happened, this has now crystallized everything that came before it. Right. So like the lack of possibility, like this, we've now the box is open. So Schrodinger's cat is either open or dead because now we're out of Dark Souls content. And like Schrodinger's cat is alive but sick. It's got wet tail, and it's it's got like that weird eye thing that cats get. And that's just how the cat is. And now the cat exists. And that the bummer thing is I'm going to move forward, and that's always going to be the cat. That's Dark Souls 3 for me. And it, the people who get mad at us about this, like, I don't know what we could have done differently to express this in terms of what it is, which is heartbreak. Yeah. Like this is my favorite video game series of all time. Like this is, I've dedicated a lot of years to my life to this. I went into this wanting to love it. Other entries in the series like touched my heart. And to have come away from one of these that like didn't, just didn't. Like this is the first entry where it's like I can count on one hand the moments that made me feel anything, and they all crumbled with the little bit of thought. And compare that to every other entry in the series that like is, just really, really meaningful to me. It is a real big bummer.
Heartbreak is the afterword. I would say that.
It's like the difference between 1 and 3 is just expressed by Sigmar versus Sigward.
Oh yeah, you're speaking my language. Let's get into it. I know we're approaching hour 5, but like Oh, but that's 100% it. Like it's, any of those direct one-to-one comparisons, it always suffers.
And it's
except perhaps
they are obviously different in the way that it's not like you don't like Sigvard because you've seen Sigmar before and want something new. It's like they are differently handled, and one is handled well and one is not handled as well.
Yeah.
Like Priscilla and Yorshka, like all the stuff that happens in this. It's like, Ornstein versus the old Dragon Slayer. Like,
in a lot of ways. And like, I'm somewhat sympathetic when people are like, oh, you guys gave Dark Souls 2 more of a pass. Like, it's possible that some of the weaknesses of Dark Souls 2 did pave a way for us to be more critical of 3, where it's like the kind of thing where the first time we see it, it maybe doesn't bother us as much because it's the first time. and it feels like, it's like I can excuse this because other things are really strong. This is kind of weak, but like, again, it's that dilution. It was more parts per million that were good. Yeah. And then Dark Souls 3 comes along, and it's like the second, the Ornstein told Dragon Slayer thing, that kind of comparison happens time and time again from Dark Souls 1 to Dark Souls 3, to where it just, if you're throwing a random dart, you're less likely to hit something good, and that's worrying.
And like I would have been absolutely fine with a returning, like, bumbling but well-intentioned knight from Katarina if he had been written with the pathos that they wrote Sigmar. But Sigvard isn't. And that's the problem. It's not like I'm tired of these ideas. It's just like this was not done well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We should wrap it. We are entering hour 5, and I don't want to. I'm not doing this as a weird brag, but I'm recording another podcast after this. So
Jesus.
Ooh.
Yeah. That's that pod life. But at the very least, like, it has been that crystallization. Just to end on like a positive note, like there's an upside to that crystallization too, where I've spent a lot of time thinking and talking about this game, and I feel like nope, this is where I'm at on it. Like this is a complete experience I had.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. It wasn't my favorite thing, but like that's it. That's the record. And then there's some joy to that. So we're gonna talk. We'll be we're talking about it next week as well when we get into your responses to the Ring City, and a little bit more of this stuff will come through, and maybe it will not be quite so maudlin. Richard, thank you for joining us for this like marathon.
Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, you've been nice. Ridiculously generous with your time.
Oh, that's absolutely. We've been generous asking me. I'm sorry I wasn't more positive, given that I was asked on to be speaker for the affirmative.
It's it was probably because I wanted someone, I wanted you to do it because I like you and I like your input, but also as far as positivity goes. I didn't want somebody so glowingly positive that they would, every time me and Cole said something critical, they would look at us like we're an idiot. So, but it just ended up maybe as a rounding down kind of thing. Which is okay. Where can people find you online?
People can find me on the Jerks Sans Frontier YouTube channel, and if you just look up Bloodborne Up Close on YouTube, you will find it. I'm also going to be on Don't Give Up Skeleton. Probably shortly after. I've already Jeremy records them like months in advance, so I'm on that, and it should be out sometime in May. So maybe shortly after this goes up or around the same time.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's a good podcast if you don't listen to that. That's our friend Jeremy and Days of Future Cast co-host. Yeah, talking to people about Dark Souls. If you like this show, you can go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv and kick us a couple bucks a month. Even if you don't usually listen to the Appendix episodes, you're going to want to listen to the next one because we're going to talk about the future of the show.
Yes.
So other than that, I'll keep things brief because we are all running out of steam.
Yes.
As we approach a full day's work of recording.
This has been a lot of sitting still.
Yes. Waste of time sitting still. So do we have any, I don't think we have anything else. Are you cool if I just talk us out, Cole? You're being quiet because it is really late where you're at.
Yeah, it's nearly 1 a.m. and
everyone pour one out for Cole.
Yeah. I mean, no, it's fine. I'm not going to record another podcast. I'm not. No. I don't have anything else to say. People know the admin. This is part 2. You've listened to part 1. Listen to the appendix. Listen to other shows. And thank you very much for listening to this. Hopefully, even if you didn't agree with us, hopefully we, stimulated some thought.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So until next time, what should they do?
They should let the feast begin.
And we all pray that we will have far more soon.
And I will feast to that. I actually am hungry. I'm going to eat.
There's like a sandwich within reach of me, but I don't want to chew on it.